Oh shit, you are early. Hello. And I got it working today. Oh fuck. It's too hot. Too hot. I'm too hot. I need to take my jumper off. Hold on, I don't want to do that on camera. Don't want to get removed for bearing all. Jesus. Morning, Chris. Hello, mediocre. Hello. Good morning from Cali. Hello from the UK. Hello, everyone. Good morning from Quebec. Good morning from the UK. I'm feeling a little bit rough today. We're going to start with something a little different today. I'm going to start from Strands, which is my new favourite New York Times game. All these New York Times games, though, just exist in the paper, right? I don't know if this one will make for a much interesting, but feels hard to get good info, a sense of what's going on. Yeah, I mean, I've kind of felt that way. Obviously, I was much more focused on Venezuela last week, and the Iran stuff is interesting because, like, put frankly, a lot of people will just be quick to go, oh, it's all a Mossad Israeli disinformation campaign, of which there 1000% is a flavour, but also there's a lot more to it, and there are very genuine and real grievances. There was a short mention of it, maybe like 30-40 minutes on one of my previous streams, but now I've got some more, like a longer chance to focus. But yeah, like, I mean, ultimately, I don't think we should just dismiss it as foreign, like a foreign-backed, foreign-backed influence. Like, people just have their own, people have problems in Iran. Also, I'm going to have to move my picture. That's the only problem with Strands. Hold on. I'm going to have to put the membership call up here and do that. I'm sorry you're sick. So I've got to mask up and tough it out. It's crazy that you have to go into work sick. Good evening to you. I don't really understand how this game works. So appeal to a higher power. So I assume higher power is like a play on words. So I assume there's interview in here, but no, I can't see it. 9 you can do. That's nice. Capitalism, gonna capitalism. All right. Yeah. Unfortunately, howdy, Chris and chat. Hello. I watched. Has anyone seen the Malcolm X film? The Malcolm X film is brilliant. I watched it. I watched it last night. Like, wow. Honestly, hard for us to help you with this. Yeah, I mean, it is hard for you to help me with this. I do enjoy it, but it's probably my favorite one. But it's kind of just like, it's not really as fun to do. So I'm gonna skip this. I do enjoy it though, but yeah, you can't help me, whereas Wordle's a bit more interactive, you know. If I get stuck, that is. Today I'm just going to get it in one. Watch. That was actually a pretty good starting guess. No. Was that? This is not my main YouTube account. I see, Elab. Strands sounds tough. No, Strands is pretty easy. It's just, yeah. I need to, yeah. Croat. I don't think croat's a word, AC, but good guess. Groan is a good one. Yeah, I might try that. Oh, no, it's not OAN. But, sorry, I didn't see if anyone's watched it. The Malcolm X film is goated. Genuinely magnificent. One of the best. I put it straight in my Letterboxd top 5. I already hit it this morning. What's smoking or what are you talking about? Is there anything like this? Is there any word that's like that? Because if not, is it 2 A's? Nah, I can't think of any word that's like that. I know, it could be that. No. Virtual Matt, you became a level 1 member. Thank you for joining.
Ridiculous.
Thanks for bringing us closer to the membership goal. Thank you very much. Triad is a great guess. That is a brilliant guess. Is that the answer? Oh. Trial. Trias. Triam. I think it has to be trial. When I first read that, I was like, trial? But it's trial, isn't it? Yeah. That was a good one. Thank you. We'll try the connections. But yeah, Virtual Matt, thank you for becoming a member. Thanks for supporting the channel and making the stream plausible. It had to be trial. Yeah, there couldn't have been any other word, right? Like, I'm just being hyper careful in this. I also tried to engage with your audience, add emotes. I can maybe add a new emote. I'll try that. Membership. Loyalty badges. Can I get my own loyalty badge? I don't know. Gaming content, poggers. Yeah, this is the closest you'll get to gaming content for now, but don't worry, we're gonna be back. We're gonna be back up to that shit soon. Thank you, Virtual Matt, as always, and thank you. Right, novice expert, intermediate, proficient. Yeah, experience levels. That was a good one. Oh, I just saw you put that in there, Fluffy Dog. Nice. Ending in coins. Oh, wow, that's a good one. Nickel, quarter, penny, and dime. Very good. That was insane. Agreement, understanding, handshake, compact. Oh, damn. Living room furniture. What does it mean by console? Like gaming console? Wow. Hello, Gatto Surfer. Hope you're good. We got an exciting episode today. But nice to see you. I also think, just quickly on Iran, I just wanted to talk to you about, like, one of the reasons I've been a little wary to cover it, and then obviously it's really accelerated since. Look at this. Now, yesterday, Asmongold mistook a massive pro-Iranian government rally for an anti-government government protest. There are so many people, he says with amazement. This is absolutely insane. Iran's cooked. Then he moves on until a viewer tells him to go back and read the description. But, like, first of all, something you might not know is, in news outlets in Western society, there aren't actually many amazing Farsi speakers. And also, something which we're going to detail in this episode, a lot of people, and this isn't everyone, I've met some very competent young people who speak English and Farsi, but there is a certain degree of people I've met who speak English all their lives as Iranians and never really attain like a really high level of it. Gas bill fund. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you for that incredibly kind donation, Cindy. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how it's so cold today. But sorry, the level of proficiency in Farsi is not that high. And it's pretty disappointing. That £10 is going to be used for me to go to a Farsi lesson and start going again. I haven't been in ages. I also think you've kind of touched on something there, which I'm going to talk about later. A lot of libs just like Iran to make themselves feel good. They don't give a monkeys about oppression in the world because, like, look, the Iranian government is undeniably repressive and you should not ignore that. You should not ignore that at all. You should not pretend that that's like an unimportant thing. However, simultaneously, the vast majority of people do not care about Iran. They do not care about repression because they are happy any time that Israel and the US does something to unequivocally back it. And oh God, also this, like, I feel very sorry for Iranians. A lot of them are going through a lot, right? And a lot of Iranians can't talk to their families, so they don't even know how bad things really are inside Iran if they've been targeted or anything. But anyway, the diaspora communities of Iranians, my fucking God, just Jesus. Like, any of you who have interacted with them, there's like this guy who worships Tommy Robinson, who barely speaks English, who's like leading all of the pro-Iran protests in the UK. In fact, we'll get into him in a bit. I want to cover the Trump oil exec stuff first and some other funny stuff. But yeah, this Niak Gorbani guy is like worships Trump, and like he's not a good person. He's just racist as shit, but he just gets invited on the news because he's a right winger who loves Tommy Robinson and just sows hatred against Palestinians. But oh my God. And there's also just so much disinformation, which isn't great. In terms of, like, you know, today it was being posted that thousands of people have been killed. So this is Niak Gorbani, and he's just like a horrible character, but...
his country, their country bombing. But they threaten everyone. They threaten us, they threaten you, they threaten a Western country, they threaten Israel. But, you know, this stress...
There are so many Iranians with misplaced beliefs, and like lots of people from, you know, the Middle East who think if they cozy up with white supremacists, people are going to like accept them, and if they just support Israel enough, they'll become white. You think a guy who talks like this, do you honestly think that most white supremacists are just going to be like, you're fine? And for people who are here on visas, who have fled the Iranian government, do you really think that people involved with GB News, Reform UK, the Conservative Party, who regularly talk about their desire for mass deportations and remigration, are going to draw the line at you?
In our life, and you know, I'm just seeing the video today. The woman, handballist woman, actually, she's showing the Tehran and saying to the Iranian outside Iran, say, Tehran is still Tehran. It's mean our city still alive. We have to save that. If you want to help us, just stop negotiation with the Islamic Republic.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, this guy, his entire life is just dedicated to harassing pro-Palestine protesters. Like, this is all this guy does, and it is such a detriment to, like, you know, attempts at solidarity building. Then the other problem is that, like, many Iranians who are on the pro-Palestine protests, not all, there are many good and decent and well-meaning people. There are also just, like, some unequivocal supporters of the Pahlavi regime, the Islamic Republic, who would not hear a word of criticism about them. So it's kind of like a difficult mixture, and there's, I don't know, just someone like this, you know, whose entire life is just dedicated to wasting police time. Like, look at how many resources are just wasted on protecting this guy so he can hold up these signs and make his march for free Iran. Also, this is just a cut and paste copy of the pro-Palestine protests. And no, like, these don't even gain that much motion on the internet. This guy looks insane.
Your Highness Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi has stood clearly and consistently with the Iranian people, not seeking
I appeal to the lion is roaring.
It's also, I know there are many Iranians who have good intentions, who want something better for their country. Having this lady, who is a propagandist of the state of Israel, here is just insane.
October the 7th.
I don't even know who this guy is.
On October the 7th.
Like, you literally have Israeli military flags there, and people act as if it's insane, and they wonder why there's leftist apprehension towards all of this. How do you expect anyone who is a leftist to go down to something that has an Israeli military flag? How do you feel comfortable at that?
Over the 7th.
Like, how? And you know, I get it. Like, Iranians feel upset about the lack of support, you know. But simultaneously, these are the big marches. It's not even very representative of what Iranians want. It's just, unfortunately, a very polarized and divisive thing, in part because of its major co-option by Israel, which, by the way, is detrimental because, as I've said, people have very serious and real interests in Iran. People don't, like Middle Easterners, do not have a proclivity to live under democracy. The vast majority of human beings, if not every single human being, want to live under want to live under, you know, with the ability to choose and define their lives. But yeah, we'll get into that in a bit. Being a leftist feels like not having much of a home in political discussions right now. This wouldn't even go back to Iran. They would stay in the West and use their capital to appropriate assets in exchange. I don't know if this guy has any assets beyond whatever he's given by pro-Israel influencers. Like, he apparently works in IT. Sorry, I'm not crying, I'm just burping. Organising in the West, right? It's beyond childish of people to expect the same motion when organising a single protest. Yes, and also, you know what? We'll get into it in a bit. First of all, let's get into some incredible... I don't know if any of you watched the Golden Globes, but there is some incredible, incredible stuff going on here.
You give us so much, but Bill Maher, you give us so much, but I would love a little less. Just try less.
You can see how upset Bill Maher is. This is Wanda Sykes at the Golden Globes. She had another very, very, very enjoyable bit. It is kind of funny seeing someone talk like this.
Vase, I love you for not being here. No, I love you, Ricky, but because if you win, I get to accept the award on your behalf, and you're going to thank God. And the trans community. The Golden Globe goes to... Tayana, can I borrow your speech? Ricky Gervais, because he would like to thank God.
I don't really understand how Ricky Gervais is winning an award. He's very, very unfunny man.
And the trans community. Ricky Gervais could not be here.
I wonder what Ricky Gervais thought about that. Like, I wonder if he was, like, really incensed about it. That is what actual comedy looks, though, like Ricky Gervais. Maybe take note.
Because it's not all doom and gloom, getting older. There's good and...
I mean, content warning. Sorry, I didn't know that this is where it was going, but I don't think I'm just, like, disliking this because it's, like, I don't like Ricky Gervais. It's just not very funny. That's enough of that. It's just very unfunny. It is kind of shocking, like, the fall-off, because he did make some very high-tier...
Someone always goes, oh, was it...
Comedy.
It's a big...
And now he just makes this, but in my understanding, it must have been other people who... Not really very funny, like, subversive or like, kind of impressive comedy. It's much more funny actually saying something that cuts Ricky Gervais deep. It's not very funny. Who is the target audience? But how does he get worse? He was, I mean, being frank, The Office is very, very, very funny. But yeah, I don't know. Also, in light of something that I'm not going to talk about, because I'm not enough of a... for fuck's sake, I've accidentally gone into suggesting mode. In light of something that I'm not going to talk about, apart from very briefly, with Trump trying to go after the chairman of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, we're going to bring back this banger video.
So we're taking a look, and it looks like it's about 3.1 billion. It went up a little bit, or a lot. So the 2.7 is now 3.1.
I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, it just came out.
Yeah, I haven't heard that from anybody at the Fed.
Yeah, it just came out.
Our notes had it about 3.1 as well.
3.1.
3.2.
This came from us.
Yes. I don't know who does that.
Are you including the Martin renovation? You just added
our entire capital.
Yeah, you just added in a third building. Is what that is. That's a third building.
Well,
including
no,
the
but
Martin building.
it's a building that's being built.
No, it was built 5 years ago.
In order to be the chairman of the Federal Reserve, you basically have to have like a PhD in economics, generally, I'm pretty sure. And Jerome Powell's not like he was like an investment banker, I'm just looking at this. But I'm sure he has a PhD, right? Education. Oh no, he doesn't have a PhD, actually. He has a Doctor of Law, which I don't know how that works in America, but generally most people who are the Fed chair have like very high levels of education. I don't really know what his education is, like South Africa Forces for Change. After spending a year in legislature, he was editor-in-chief of the Georgetown Law Review and graduated with a Juris Doctor. That's not a doctorate, right? He actually doesn't have that large of a... he doesn't have that much of like a... Is this like a newer thing with him? Because I had heard that... Wait. Oh, wait. Is it Federal Reserve Governor that tends to have a PhD? Either way, it normally requires like a high level of... education to do these jobs, and Trump is just going to replace them with someone like very, very incredibly stupid. But I like that, you know, it's kind of interesting. America will just implode on the basis of this guy trying to sue him over a building.
We finished Martin 5 years ago.
It's part of the overall work.
But it's
So,
not new.
So we're going to...
Yeah, but I thought you had to, what's her name? I think Lisa Cook. Lisa Cook was the Federal Reserve. She has, sorry, Lisa Cook is who I was thinking of in terms of her education, who Trump is trying to remove. Lisa Cook is like at least a pretty, you know, a very intelligent person in terms of understanding economics. PhD in economics. Ben Bernanke, I think, had one too. But he was the chair of the Federal Reserve. I don't know what Alan Greenspan had. Yeah, Ben Bernanke did Alan Greenspan. By the way, I'm not saying that this makes you a good person, and there are certainly many educated, really... I never knew Alan Greenspan looked like that. He's interesting. I don't really... He's not very handsome, but he has a PhD. Okay. He got them all from New York University, though. He kind of looks like someone, and I don't really know who. Maybe he just looks like Alan Greenspan, and I couldn't remember what Alan Greenspan looked like. Space God Swift, expecting mediocrity in the oligarchy. Trump values loyalty over competence. Yes, more Pete Hegseth types everywhere. Yeah, I think America should be staffed by racist, Islamophobic, piece of shit alcoholics because it's just sort of what the state is actually like. Put frankly. Who does he look like? Does he just look like Alan Greenspan? Okay. William McChesney Martin. Wow. Jesus Christ, he was there for 19 years. One day I'll learn about more about the Federal Reserve. But Jerome Powell posted a very interesting video. And I suppose what's interesting about all of this is, by the way, he looks like Henry Kissinger. Yeah, I think that's who I'm thinking of, that he looks a bit like Henry Kissinger. What's kind of interesting about this is the Federal Reserve is actually kind of like a, Jesus Christ, I need to zoom in because that top comment is insane. What was I going to say? Oh, the Federal Reserve is just kind of like the deep state because it's basically something that's appointed that's meant to be non-partisan. Crazy. Used to work for Alan Greenspan. Wow.
Friday, the Department of Justice served the Federal Reserve with grand jury subpoenas, threatening a criminal indictment related to my testimony before the Senate Banking Committee last June. That testimony concerned in part a...
That was quite a long swallow. Sorry, it's kind of detracting.
Concerned in part a multi... That testimony concerned the Committee last June.
That's quite a long swallow to put in like a video that millions of people are going to see.
That testimony concerned in part a multi-year project to renovate historic Federal Reserve office buildings.
Jesus Christ, there's quite a few swallows.
I have deep respect for the rule of law and for accountability in our democracy. No one, certainly not the chair of the Federal Reserve, is above the law. But this unprecedented action should be seen in the broader context of the administration's threats and ongoing pressure. This new threat is not about my testimony last June or about the renovation of the Federal Reserve buildings. It is not about Congress's oversight role. The Fed, through testimony and other public disclosures, made every effort to keep Congress informed about the renovation project. Those are pretexts. The
Jesus.
threat of criminal charges is a consequence of the Federal Reserve setting interest rates based on our best assessment of what will serve the public, rather than following the preferences of the president. This is about whether the Fed will be able to continue to set interest rates based on evidence and economic conditions, or whether instead monetary policy will be directed by political pressure or intimidation. I have served at the Federal Reserve under 4 administrations, Republicans and Democrats alike. In every case, I have carried out my duties without political fear or favor, focused solely on our mandate of price stability and maximum employment. Public service sometimes requires standing firm in the face of threats. I will continue to do the job the Senate confirmed me to do, with integrity and a commitment to serving the American people. Thank you.
Amazing things are happening. Amazing things are happening over in the over in the burger rice. Truly, truly amazing things. But yeah, I mean, not really a story I'm going to get majorly into, but it does seem Trump is actually trying to capture every single state organ in America so he can get up to unbridled and crazy stuff. Remains to be seen if he'll succeed in that, because at a certain point, isn't it just dangerous for, you know, the capitalist class, who kind of pushed back on Trump last time. After January 6th, do you remember, like, all of the major newspapers released, like, things that were like, it's time for Trump to step down. But now they're just like, Barry Weiss told us to be nice to Trump. Right. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Have any of you seen this amazing tweet? Adam Louis Klein, who Bad Empanada called like the Zionist Franz Fanon, had a banger tweet. Jews are indigenous to Israel. Stop the colonizer libel. 1,000 people like this. By the way, Zionists and like their supporters are morons. They are utter morons. Anyone who is supporting this is an idiot, and the fact that this has 1,000 likes is unsurprising. Someone responded, Ivanka Trump recently converted to Judaism. Does that make her indigenous to Israel now? Adam Louis Klein, yep. So a recent conversion of belief means that her ancestors inhabited a territory that is known as Israel, but the ancestors of her siblings and parents, Donald and Ivana, are not Jewish, also not indigenous, so her ancestors are simultaneously indigenous and not indigenous. Can you libel a group? I don't think Adam Louis Klein is capable of producing any meaningful thought, and the fact that this guy has 17,000 followers, it is amazing. I genuinely think if you're like a Zionist content creator, you just get signal boosted all over X by Elon Musk and just a platform that just pumps out your content. These are also really shitly made. No compromise with anti-Zionist hate. They use their power to push Jews out of academia, the arts, publishing, and elsewhere, to silence Jews with threats of exclusion. They use their numbers to drown out the voice of objection, of truth, and of justice. They use libels to make their hatred, bigotry, and harassment seem justified. They used violence to threaten and intimidate, to instill fear and submission in a minority. They are anti-Zionists, the racist hate movement of our time. It's also crazy because someone who is like, once again, I cannot believe that anyone takes this seriously. I genuinely cannot believe that anyone thinks that this is as serious but you know, someone who is subjected to like actual meaningful racism. A white supremacist just killed an innocent demonstrator. A white supremacist who got paid $50,000 a year for the privilege of going around harassing and killing protesters. That's what ICE is. And you think we should be worried about this? Why? It's instill fear. It's not install fear as well, is it? Jewish people are prominent in arts and academia. Of course they are, because this isn't real. None of these people are living serious, real lives. Same sheet, different day. Anti-Zionism is anti-Jewish hate movement that targets Jews and Israelis for harassment and violence. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's like, I said this when I was talking to Isaac in the No Politic Here podcast this week. Making comparisons just because you make comparisons of two things you don't like and think are bad is incredibly stupid. Like, okay, why is the pro-Palestine movement in any way comparable to the KKK? Israel is like a gay/lesbian bar. Anyone can go there, but it's designed to protect a violently persecuted minority. Anti-Zionists reject these protections, insisting on Jewish subjugation and genocide under Arab Muslim supremacy, and then libeling Israel as an apartheid state. This is written by ChatGPT as well. This is categorically... I don't know if this guy is a PhD student. I don't really think he is, although some people have said that they've met him at conferences. Like, there's no mention of him on the McGill website, which apparently there would be. I also can't really believe that there are people like academics who take this seriously. I mean, he has an interview with Haviv Rettig Gur, who's like some new-ish Israeli propagandist.
I think most metaphysical fact about making a statement about anything. So if I make a statement about something,
he's also having to read this off a script, very evidently.
The fact that I've made that statement raises the possibility that it's true, right? As long as there's minimal plausibility to that statement. So when you want to construct another group of people as sort of inherently under suspicion, you don't actually have to prove that the things you're saying about them are true. You just have to raise the possibility that they're true. Because as long as
I really can't believe that people take this seriously. This is what stupid people think smart people sound like. Yeah, he is The textual genealogy of the anti-Zionist apartheid libel is demonstrable and should be treated as a matter of public record. The libel is almost always accompanied by claims of Jewish supremacy and the canard that Zionism is racism, which can be traced textually and structurally to specific Christian anti-Judaic canards rather than to anti-racist or decolonial traditions. The apartheid libel consistently appears alongside a recognizable cluster of subsidiary trope libels, biblical chauvinism, racial exclusivity, chosenness, and Joshua's conquest, and even references to Amalek. This same trope cluster recurs across sources: PLO polemics, Sayer, Jabur, Hilal Haddad, Soviet anti-Zionist propaganda, Ivanov, Kitschko, Begun, and Primakov, and the United Nations seminars on the question of Palestine. Shut up. Like, genuinely, who reads this and gleans something from it? I won't repeat what that person said because they used the slur, but... Oh my god, someone's written out Rawan Osman, the recovered anti-Semite, Syrian-born German activist. First they came for the Yazidi women. I said nothing. I am not Islamophobic. Then they came for the Christian women. I said nothing. I am not Islamophobic. Then they came for the Kurds. I said nothing. I am not Islamophobic. Then they came for the Druze. I said nothing. I am not Islamophobic. Then they came for the Jews. I said nothing. I am not Islamophobic. Then they came for the Iranians. I said nothing. I am not Islamophobic. They are still coming, as long as it isn't for me. Thanks, Rawan Osman. By the way, this guy just thinks exactly like Ethan Klein. Stop fake progressivism. Oppose Islamic supremacy, fascism, and Jew hatred. Dismantle the anti-Zionist libel complex. End the anti-Zionist hate movement. This makes her someone who's just like who's just read the title of books and bases their thought around that. But yeah, he's certainly a great guy. Finally, we had this one of an incredible statement of what the American government took away from us when it came to Nicolas Maduro. They stopped the Bolivarian revolution because Trump lacked any kind of coherence like this.
Dice que el Homo sapiens tiene 300,000 años sobre la Tierra. Dicen los estudiosos, pues, los científicos. Con unos descubrimientos recientes, creo que en Argentina, ¿no? Estudiando el cerebro de Milei, descubrieron que no pertenecía al Homo sapiens, que es una cosa ahí rara. Y entonces, Homo faciens, Homo nazis. Milei es una especie de Homo nazis.
It is truly incredible that this is what they took from us.
Que es una involución del Homo sapiens. ¿Qué?
Dave Rich lecture on anti-Semitism at the LS... Hey, Dave Rich anti-Semitism lecture. Where is this? Dave Rich anti-Semitism. I'm not watching an hour-long...
If the IDF lift restrictions on Gazan fishermen, it will somehow bring about an end to agricultural deforestation in Brazil.
This is made for very stupid people. Who even is Dave Rich? He's the head of this community security trust. Okay, he's the head of a... just rubbish. He's so iconic, as if he was good as a... Yeah. If only he was as good as a leader as he was at saying funny things on the internet. He would have been a great poster. I think it's fair to say. Okay, right. So, before we get into the Iran stuff, I just quickly wanted to watch a bit of Trump meeting with the oil executives. It's like an hour-long video, but don't worry, I'm just going to skip to the good parts, which, as I'm sure many of you have seen, include some amazing, amazing parts.
Loss of no equipment. It was pretty amazing. Nobody's seen anything like it. I was called by the leaders of numerous countries. I won't go into which ones, but the biggest. and the strongest, and they said that was very impressive. They were all impressed. But today I'm delighted to welcome almost 24 of the biggest and most respected oil and gas executives in the world to the White House. It's an honor to be with them. We have many others that were not able to get in. I said if we had a ballroom, we'd have over 1,000 people. Everybody wanted. I never knew your industry was that big. I never knew you had that many people in your industry.
The sound is horrible on this. Hold on, let me check if the White House video is any better. White House, Trump, oil execs. Why is the sound so bad? It wasn't so bad earlier. ABC News, President Trump meets with oil execs. What the fuck? Anyway, we'll just go back to it.
Numerous countries, I won't go into which ones, but the biggest and the strongest, and they said that was very impressive. They were all impressed. But today I'm delighted to welcome almost 24 of the biggest and most respected oil and gas executives in the world to the White House. It's an honor to be with them. We have many others that were not able to get in. I said if we had a ballroom, we'd have over 1,000 people. Everybody wanted. I never knew your industry was that big. I never knew you had that many people in your industry. But here we are. And if you, in fact, if you look, come to think of it, well, I got to look at this myself.
What are the odds Trump dies before the ballroom is finished? Because I don't know if any of you have seen this, but a few days ago, Donald Trump promised that he was going to give people $2,000 stimulus tariff checks. Listen to this.
Promised $2,000 checks to Americans based off of your tariff revenues. When can
I did do that? When did I do that?
Well, I mean, you're
Yeah, I'm thinking, well, I did 1776 for the military, right?
When will those Americans get those checks?
Well, I am going to. The tariff money is so substantial that's coming in that I'll be able to do 2,000 sometime, I would say, toward the end of the year.
You promised to.
So he just promised. He promised that he was going to do. He promised that he was going to give. Oh, for fuck's sake! Why has it done that? He promised that he was going to give these massive tariff checks, and has now just completely walked it back, which is incredible. Why is it doing this? It has, but now he's just completely walked it back. It seemed he'd even forgotten that he'd promised that, which is pretty impressive as the president to have forgotten that within a day. Okay, right, brilliant. Sorry, it just will not let me click on this video. Hold on, 1 sec. Okay, it's working. I'm gonna give these. Sorry, you're hearing me twice, so I'm having to fiddle around. I want to see if I can find the actual video of him with the oil execs, because it's not double sounded. It wasn't double sounded earlier. Trump meets with oil executives about Venezuela. It is utterly ridiculous. I'm an Israeli film maker. Please fund my documentary, Inside the Kibbutz, where Bernie Sanders lived on stolen land and learned to be a Treatlerite. Yeah, and learn to be a pro-American burger rice lover. I can't really believe that I didn't know that much about him. I didn't know that much about him being that way. Thank you for the €5, Marcus. But yeah, I mean, he's always kind of been that way. The calling of Chavez a dictator is genuinely insane, because it's just objectively not true.
I want to thank our military. What they've done is incredible. That was considered unprecedented to go into a military fort with thousands of soldiers and others.
Hold on, I'll get this other version up, which I think has a better echo.
We're doing tremendous things. Our country is doing very well. You saw the numbers that got released today, yesterday. Deficits cut way, way, way back at levels that nobody's ever seen before.
Wait, what?
Released today. Seat many, and Venezuela and the entire world. And yesterday, the number is 30 million barrels.
Okay, right. I don't know how this has got so fucked up. I guess we missed the start. I don't know. Wait, what? Why are these two things? Okay, right. Here we go. So here's the White House version.
Under budget to the oil companies, but not that, because that's already been...
Sorry, one moment. I'm really sorry for this. This is just fucked up.
It's incredible. That was considered unprecedented to go into a military fort with thousands of soldiers and others, and to come in with 152 planes. But here we are. And if you look, come to think of it, well, I got to look at this myself.
Rubio and Vance looking at each other there. It really does feel like none of these people really think that he's competent anymore. So why is he building this? Is it just he says it's to host like events for Xi Jinping?
Wow. What a view. This is the door to the ballroom. Well, what did you have? Unusual time to look, but I figure we might as well do it. If the fake news would like to go back and take a look, you can, but you'll see a very big foundation that's moving. We're ahead of schedule in the ballroom and under budget. It's going to be, I don't think there'll be anything like it in the world, actually. I think it'll be the best. We went from, this is, as you know, our biggest room, which would seat 100 for dinner, maybe, if you're lucky, if you're nice and tight. And the ballroom will seat many. And it'll also take care of the inauguration with bulletproof glass, drone-proof ceilings, and everything else, unfortunately, that today you need.
I also like how he's saying, oh, it's unfortunate that we need this kind of stuff today. Bro, presidents have been assassinated before. It's not really a symptom of today. It's just you have the capacity to do that kind of stuff.
So we're going to discuss how these great American companies can help rapidly rebuild Venezuela's dilapidated oil industry and bring millions of barrels of oil production to benefit the United States, the people of Venezuela, and the entire world. And yesterday, the number is 30 million barrels.
By the way, I was just looking at the list of people who've donated to the ballroom. It is literally just like, oh God, it is like the worst companies in the world. Altria, Amazon, Apple, Booz Allen Hamilton Inc. Don't know what that is. Caterpillar. The amount of these that are involved with Israel. Caterpillar, Amazon, Apple. Well, Apple's not heavily involved, but still is to an extent. Caterpillar categorically is, especially the American side of it. Coinbase, because he loves his crypto scamming. Comcast, Google LLC, Hard Rock International. Is that the Hard Rock Cafe? HP, Lockheed Martin. It is utterly ridiculous. You hear about the Israelis burning the Patagonia. No, I've not heard it was Israelis. I've heard that there was some intentionality to it, though. But also, did you know that there's a small group of Welsh people who moved over from the UK and settled in Patagonia? Quite interesting. I learned that because there were some people on the radio talking about it. It's fucking insane. They were like a religiously persecuted people who went over there. Oh, those are the people that Snowden worked for. Meta, Micron, Microsoft, Nextra, Palantir, Ripple Labs, another crypto piece of shit company, Reynolds American Inc., T-Mobile, the Union Pacific Railroad. How much did Donald Trump donate to the ballroom? Harold Hamm? Christ, this guy's crazy looking. Thank you for the $2 by the way. This guy looks crazy. Very, very, very troubling looking man. That's who's funding the ballroom. Isaac Perlmutter, Stephen A. Schwartzman, Paolo Tirmani, Cameron Winklevoss. Oh my God, the Winklevosses. Winklevoss and Meta invested in it. Wow.
I can't even, is that a correct number? 30 million barrels. You hear that, Peter? Of oil was given to us by Venezuela.
By the way, I don't think me and Isaac really delved into this. I think we mentioned it. I think I definitely mentioned a bit. All of this stuff about Venezuelan oil. You can pump oil in Guyana, where huge amounts of oil have just been discovered. You can pump it for $30 a barrel. It is double that in Venezuela. All of this is rubbish. It is untrue, and it is lies.
That's a lot of oil. It's about $4 billion worth, and it's on its way to the United States right now. And we want to thank Venezuela for that. and we're working very well with them, obviously, or they wouldn't have been so generous. But they respect us again. They didn't respect us at all before. So that's money that goes to the United States. Some will go to Venezuela, and some will go to the oil companies, but not that, because that's already been extracted. So you're not getting any of that. But when you start extracting, you'll get...
I also really like how Marco Rubio is just sat there completely stone-faced. JD Vance is sat there smiling with the stupid look on his face. But yeah, whoa, Chris there, leave Guyana alone. I mean, yeah, maybe I should leave Guyana alone, but none of this really makes sense from the angle of, like, extracting oil. I think it's not because they need it, it's they want to control the supply. Maybe it's that, but I don't know.
Yeah, but it's tremendous reserves. Among the biggest in the world. Some people say it is the biggest in the world.
Yeah, that's the other thing I kept hearing. And I don't know what this means, but on the Ones and Twos podcast, he kept talking about boutique refineries that have the capacity to process this crude. Most of the big companies are set up for the shale oil, the stuff that looks like the forbidden milkshake.
And we're going to be working with Venezuela. We're going to be making the decision as to which oil companies are going to go in, that we're going to allow to go in. Going to cut a deal with the companies. We'll probably do that today or very shortly thereafter with Chris and Doug. And we're dealing with the country, so we're empowered to make that deal. And you'll have total safety, total security. One of the reasons you couldn't go in is you had no guarantees, you had no security, but now you have total security. It's a whole different Venezuela.
Also, how do they know that this is ever going to be maintained and, like, kept up 100%, like it'll constantly happen? That there won't be any challenge to this kind of stuff? Because I feel like that's a pretty big guarantee, because Trump will not live forever.
Venezuela is going to be very successful, and the people of the United States are going to be big beneficiaries, because we're going to be extracting, numbers of... in terms of oil, like, few people have ever seen, actually. So you're dealing with us directly. You're not dealing with Venezuela at all. We don't want you to deal with Venezuela. Let me thank Vice President J.D. Vance, who's doing a fantastic job. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, likewise, a fantastic job. I have good people. I like them better than my first group. But we had a great... Despite that, we had a great first term. We had some great people.
They were built for the Canada-US oil deal, and the Keystone's pipeline never happened, so millions just sitting there. Okay, I have heard that's... I haven't seen anyone who's talking about that. If you could send me a source for that, I'd be really interested. Thank you, Drunken Machine. Even just saying it's a new place within a matter of days is so insane. Yeah, it doesn't seem like they've actually changed much. I did see, though, did any of you see this? Apparently... according to some reporting, because, a lot of people were like, oh, what the hell? Why did nothing happen? Like, why was there no fighting? Apparently, the Venezuelans just were not prepared at all for an attack, according to the New York Times. Listen to this. Apparently, Venezuela were unable to maintain and operate the S-300, one of the world's most advanced anti-aircraft systems, as well as the Buck defense systems, leaving its airspace vulnerable when the Pentagon launched Operation I'm not calling it that, to capture Maduro, to kidnap Maduro, 4 current American officials said. So apparently it was just down to them not turning the machines on and not knowing how to use them. So, remains to be seen. Hold on 1 second, sorry, I have multiple messages on Discord, so I want to see what these are. Okay, I've seen what you've now... Okay, thank you. But yeah, apparently this is just what happened. You can't believe anything coming out of the New York Times. Well, I mean, there's been quite contradictory reporting. So what would I choose to believe? What would be the choice to believe? They reported initially that he was captured by... he was captured because of a deal, but... now, apparently, they didn't have it switched on. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. it does seem pretty unbelievable that it would be the case of it was entirely switched off. However, simultaneously, unbelievable things have happened all over the world. Hold on, let me blow my nose.
There too, by the way. But we had a great first term. We had the greatest economy in the history of our country in the first term, but this is blowing it away. And you haven't seen anything yet. Everyone's been shocked by the numbers, 5.4% GDP. And that's despite the fact that we were badly hurt by the Democrat shutdown, of which they'd like to see if they could shut it down again. Secretary of the Interior, Doug Burgum, who's fantastic. Secretary of Energy, Chris Wright, recommended by Doug as being the greatest oil man anywhere in the world, because I wanted Doug for that job, energy, and Doug said, no, sir, there's a man named Chris Wright. I said, who the hell is Chris Wright? He said he's the most...
Also, I just want to note, like, when he's talking, it's kind of interesting because J.D. Vance can never recreate that.
Talented oil man anywhere in the world. I doubt you can get him because typically oil men make a lot of money, and women.
No one will recreate this.
Make a lot of money, but Chris came. You took one of the greatest salary cuts probably in history, Chris, right? But he's a fantastic person, loves our country, and many other important members of this team. And I want to thank them for their efforts. As you know, last week, the United States Armed Forces performed one of the most spectacular military operations in American history, apprehending the outlaw dictator.
Okay, shut up. This is enough of this. We're going to skip to some interesting parts. I think that this is going to be pulled forward a bit.
Authorities in Venezuela very clear
in the forefront. So thank you, table, with the assurance. For more than a century, Chevron has been a part of Venezuela's.
Sometimes it was hard. I remember 6 months ago, I told you to stay, just stay. Things are going to happen. You'll be very happy. I didn't know they were going to happen this fast or this conclusively. One thing I think everyone has to know is that if we didn't do this, China or Russia would have done it. And if China or Russia were a next-door neighbor, because essentially this is not around the other parts of the world so far away where you fly in an airplane for 24 hours before you get there. This is sort of a next-door neighbor, if you think about it. And I told China and I told Russia, we get along with you very well. We like you very much. We don't want you there. Not going to be there. And if we didn't do this, China would have been there and Russia would have been there. Maybe they both would have been there together, but they're not going to be there now. One thing I will tell them, and I will tell you, that we are open for business. China can buy all the oil they want from us there or in the United States.
A lot of these oil executives look very bored and unsure what he's actually saying.
United States, Russia can get all the oil they need from us, and they do like oil, even though they produce a lot of it. But China and Russia and everybody else is able to go, and we'll be open for business almost immediately. I have a feeling the $100 million will be spent $100 billion will be spent very, very rapidly by these very big...
I didn't even notice him say oil women.
Powerful and rich companies, and I think they're going to be able to rebuild the infrastructure. And I hope it's going to be brand new as opposed to a rehab, because I know the tremendous difference between the new and the not so new in your industry. The new is much more beautiful, much better in every way, and actually much smaller. It's like everything else, gets smaller and stronger. It's a combination of smaller, better, and stronger. So I hope you're going to build all brand new stuff, rip out the old crap that's been there for so many years, and do it the right way. You're going to be there a long time if we make a deal. If we make a deal, you're going to be there a long time. If we don't make a deal, you won't be there at all.
He does look disgusting, though. Just to note, Trump looks terrible.
You know, sort of interesting. But again, China and Russia would have been there if we didn't do this. And the other thing people ask...
Yeah, I just noticed how much he's sweating. By the way, I did see it. I did see what you'd sent. Thinking about the Felix Biederman joke, just wishing he was one of the foot pedicure fish and having the opportunity to have a little nibble on Trump's piggies.
About the second wave, I don't think it's going to be necessary. We have an armada, a giant armada like nobody's ever seen in that part of the world. and it's stationed off the...
Yeah, it is very boring. There are a couple of points, but the problem is the problem is, right, I'm going to go back to the other version, because the other thing is in the other version, I know the timestamps. I'm sorry the audio
I
is
never
worse.
knew your industry was
adversary continuously. Mike Wirth,
To operate safely, protect the environment.
essentially this industry. We are getting along so well with the people that are involved and represented.
It's been a part of Venezuela
conclusively.
Oh, fuck's sake. This is a bit of an annoyance, because I don't want to use the other version, because the audio is horrible, but the other version is where I have timestamps.
The coast, and we are getting along so well with the people that are involved and representing Venezuela that I don't think we're going to have any, I don't think it's going to be necessary.
Don't worry, there is the part that I wanted to come up.
To do the second wave. We were planning on a second wave, but the first wave was so powerful and so good and so strong. And frankly, the people in the country, they did the right thing. They were smart. They did the right thing. They didn't want to go through a second wave, but we've got a tremendous number of the most powerful ships in the world right there. I don't think we're going to have to use that. I'm happy to say that. I don't think we're going to have to use that at all. If I could ask Chevron, you did a great job. I want to thank you. And ExxonMobil, if you would say a few words, and then followed by Conoco, great companies, massive companies, great companies. Exxon, please.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate the invitation and the opportunity, frankly, for the entire industry to show up and provide a perspective. Frankly,
by the way, this is just crazy. Like, they have carried out, like, a regime change operation in Venezuela, at least a decapitation of the head of the state there. And what do? They just host a ton of weirdos. They host a ton of weirdos to talk about the economic opportunity there.
Been kind of unresponsive to the press regarding Venezuela, but I guess today's the opportunity to address the press directly with respect to a number of questions that have been asked of ExxonMobil. First and foremost, obviously, is the interest that we have in Venezuela. And I think, you know, the way I would position that, and I think one of the reasons why we see many of the industry players here is we're in a depletion business for a product that is in great demand and will be in demand for many, many, many decades to come. And as a depletion business,
that is real copium from ExxonMobil.
biggest challenge we have is finding resources. There's an opportunity in Venezuela with all the resources there is we don't have that challenge of finding, we have the challenge of developing those resources. So I think it's in the best interest of these companies and frankly society as a whole for the industry to be interested in understanding what the opportunity here represents. I'll just share a philosophy that ExxonMobil has when we enter countries, because we do business all around the world in a number of different regimes. We take a very long-term perspective. The investments that we make span decades and decades, so we do not go into any opportunity with a short-term mindset. And there's a value proposition that we have to meet. It has to be a win-win-win proposition.
Are there any women in the room? Yes, there's Susie Wiles, who's right next to him. Oh, wait, you can't see her. Sorry, I'll move down. Yes, there are women in the room. There's this lady. I don't know if there's any others. I don't know what her is White House chief of something.
Obviously, it has to be a win for the company and our shareholders and to generate a return for the investments that we make. It has to be a win for the government. The resources are an important source of revenue that helps support the people of the places that we do business. And it has to be a win for the people. We have to be wanted there and to be a good neighbor. And those three things ensure a stable, long-term platform for the large investments that we make for the long term. With respect to Venezuela in particular, we have a very long history in Venezuela. In fact, we first got into Venezuela back in the 1940s. We've had our assets seized there twice. And so you can imagine to re-enter.
Fuck you, you deserved it.
A third time would require some pretty significant changes from what we've historically seen here and what is currently the state. If we look at the legal and commercial constructs and frameworks in place today in Venezuela, today it's uninvestable.
This has caused beef between him and Trump, by the way, because I don't even know, because it's not that insane of a statement. Like, just listen to the rest of it.
And so significant changes have to be made to those commercial frameworks, the legal system. There has to be durable investment protections, and there has to be a change to the hydrocarbon laws in the country. we're confident that with this administration and President Trump working hand in hand with the Venezuelan government, that those changes can be put in place. And with
it's just amazing. We're going to change the laws of another country so it's more investable for fucking ExxonMobil.
respect to the Venezuelan government, that perspective we don't have a view on. We haven't talked to the Venezuelan government, and obviously we have yet to assess the people's perspective.
And also, Maduro said he was happy for this kind of stuff.
With respect to ExxonMobil entering the country. In the short term, there are things that can be done while these longer-term issues are being worked. For us, we haven't been in the country for almost 20 years. We think it's absolutely critical in the short term that we get a technical team in place.
Trump just wanted him to bow down and say, yeah, you've done so well. We're going to have so much oil. Obviously, this is just very, 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 very reasonable criticism. Very reasonable criticism coming from a position of not care about Venezuelans. Nothing. Literally nothing. Beyond just him going, oh, well, you know, I don't know. We want to make some money out of this.
To assess the current state of the industry and the assets.
And it's uninvestable because it's an unpredictable political situation, which of course it is. You can do a coup. It doesn't necessarily mean that you've maintained what you're going to want there, you know?
That's to understand what would be involved to help the people of Venezuela get production back on the market. With the invitation of the Venezuelan government and with appropriate security guarantees, we are ready to put a team on the ground there. We also have a integrated set of capabilities from production to refining to trading, and I think we can be of assistance to get...
What I'm hearing is Venezuelans are never getting their country back. I think Venezuelans probably will. I think all of this Trump stuff is just destroying American power all over the world for what? For really incoherent policies defined by the man sitting to his right, the man sitting to his left, and Stephen Miller. Like, yeah, there's definitely some unison on certain things, but it is all a bit incoherent, and I don't think America is becoming more powerful. Thanks to the $2. Maduro has said he wants the US oil investment. Yeah, there's that video of him in the car. And yeah, just saying we want to help Venezuelans.
Crude to market and realizing a market price to help again with the financial situation in Venezuela. So those are my short-term perspective that I have. I'd say maybe close with a thank you, Mr. President, for the work that you've done to secure not only the national security but the energy security of the region. And then thank you, Secretary Rubio, Secretary Wright, Secretary Burgum, for your leadership in this matter. Thank you.
His father was apparently a military, his father worked in military procurement, and he spent much of his youth living near various US military bases, as in Darren Woods here. But Trump has expressed more upset over this.
Commitments to you, sir? Have any oil companies made commitments to the United States after your meeting on Friday, sir? Yeah. Which have Exxon, Pinocco?
No, I don't want to say. No, I didn't like Exxon's response. You know, we have so many that want to. I'd probably be inclined to keep Exxon out. I didn't like their response. They're playing too cute.
What did he do there that was too cute? Look at this Doge TAIX AI response. Exxon's track record in Venezuela speaks for itself. Twice expropriated, billions lost, and now demanding durable investment protections before re-entering. The CEO's hesitation isn't prudence. It's a refusal to align with America's strategic reset. Who writes this? Like, no human being has ever written like this. Apart from someone who has some... I don't know.
How long would it take you, Darren, as Exxon to, if we make a deal, how long would it take you to get in there and get started?
Well, the first step, this technical team, as I talked with Secretary Wright earlier this week, we started from the beginning to put the team together so that if and when it was needed, we could hit the ground almost immediately. So we can hit the ground within the next couple of weeks. Start the assessment, and then from there we need to understand.
That's what we want. We want speed and quality. That's what we want. Thank you, Darren.
I mean, you know what? I don't really give a shit about this ExxonMobil guy getting humiliated in front of him. He just doesn't care. Trump doesn't care unless you give a swift response that would appease Asmongold. Before they do anything, they use Asmongold as a sounding board, and whether he thinks it's based or not is how they base it on. Is whether they think it's a good thing to do. I believe around here is the next pit of gold.
Thank you, Marco. Thank you very much, and you'll get a lot of your money back. We're going to start with an even plate, though. We're not going to look at what people lost in the past because that was their fault. That was a different president. You're going to make a lot of money, but we're not going to go back. You left a lot of money behind, I guess, huh? What number?
12 billion.
How much?
12 billion.
Well, it's a good write-off.
It's already been written off.
It's been written. All right, thank you. You'll make it back one way or the other. You're all going to do very well. I think really very well. Marco.
God, Marco Rubio is pathetic. Marco Rubio is incredibly weird looking. I feel like JD Vance gets a lot of flack, but Marco Rubio looks like just a ghoul.
Gave me a note. Go back to Chevron.
Look at Marco Rubio just looking at him and realizing how out of it he is.
They want to discuss something. Go ahead.
He also just looks over at Vance like, look, this is actually not very nice, I think. It's 12 billion, by the way, not 12 million. That's how much they lost in Venezuela. But by the way, sorry, I just want to go back literally like a second. I can't get it that precise, but... I
think really very well. Marco just gave me a note.
Look at this. JD Vance proceeds to read the note.
Go back to Chevron. They want to discuss something.
And he looks straight up to JD Vance because he knows that...
Something. Go ahead.
He knows, they both know that this guy is completely cooked.
I'm going back to Chevron, Mark. Thank you, Marco.
Was there a question?
He's like gazing over at Marco Rubio.
Mr. President?
Yes, go ahead, Marco. What are you saying here?
Mark, if you can update us on operations in the ground and with the appropriate approvals.
So there's a couple more bits I wanted to quickly cover. Which I think will be around here.
Very amazing man, actually. Amazing energy person.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. It's good to be here with so many dignified people.
I actually wanted to see what this guy looked like, because on the other one, you can just hear his voice.
And his effort particularly. And thank you for your effort, for what you've done here, taking this despot out of that area. And the world dealt with him way too long. Certainly, our industry knows that this is a real jewel that can be for the people.
Oklahoma and some incredible places is a little bit different, but there's no...
I can't believe the Democrats... Yeah, it feels as if you don't offer radical change but position yourself as the party of change, you might just keep on losing elections over and over again. But I don't know, it was probably the fault of the woke pro-Palestine movement, I guess.
You won't have to worry about the straw too much.
He's an energy person.
Much here, you can just go at it. Are you going to be one of the participants?
Well, certainly, I'm an oil finder, like you said. Barry Switzer, told that story.
The coach.
And he's kind of exaggerated a little bit. It doesn't come out quite that easily usually. But anyway, great story. I love it. But I love Barry.
Barry's the one that told me this.
Yeah, he's a champion, in a lot of ways. So love that story. Certainly, it excites me as an explorationist.
It is also, there is just a high level of repugnance that this is just kind of like a normal thing. Like, let's be frank here. Sure, doing it this brazenly with... someone like this just out and about talking about, oh, I'm so excited to go into Venezuela. What do you think was going on with Iraq? Like, all of this stuff. The fact that this is just part of American life and society where you just have, like, all of these, and just generally Western society, where you have, like, all of these right-wingers who kind of just sit there and talk about, actually no, just mega business owners who just talk about exploiting another country's resources so brazenly like this is insane.
Everybody has that in their blood, and it is a very exciting country. And
yes, and it's kind of surprising that so many people act as if talking about the Democrats setting the stage and not offering meaningful change and perpetuating the same bipartisan policies of maintaining American imperialism is somehow ridiculous or somehow led to Kamala losing rather than her doing those things.
And a lot of reserves. And so it's got its challenges, and the industry knows how to handle that. And like Darren said, you know, you go in with your eyes open. And
yeah, King Alex, I think you're right. If there was a person of color in the room, everything would be fine.
And do the best you can with the team you got. So
well, you're going to have
you.
something that they never had really here is tremendous security. You're going to be very secure, very safe, physically safe, in addition to financially safe. So it's good to see you, Harold. Thank you very much. Does anybody have anything to say before we get to the press?
What does Cuba have to do to avoid the same fate as Venezuela? What does Cuba have to do?
Well, Cuba's in bad shape. Cuba relied on Venezuela for oil.
It's also crazy that that's Tucker Carlson there. Like, Tucker Carlson has been positioning himself as some radically pro-Palestine like individual, and a lot of people have held him up as such, but here he is supporting America's the American empire doing this.
And for money. And nobody really knows what's going to happen with Cuba. They're doing very poorly. They're really third world all the way. And we have a lot of great Cuban Americans. And I would say Marco fits very solidly into that category. And I might ask you to say a few words about, we were discussing it before, Cuba is a very different, they don't have energy, they don't have oil, but they would live off of the oil from Venezuela. And what they do have is very strong people and very powerful people militarily. And they would protect the people running Venezuela, and they would take in a lot of money from Venezuela. Now they don't have that. They won't be taking in any money. So, Marco, what do you think?
Well, I mean, the fundamental problem in Cuba is that it's run by incompetent people that don't know what an economy looks like, much less...
I've got to say, Cuba is a lot more competent than America, like, put frankly. The Bürgerreich has everything, and it's still declining in power. It's dominated the world for the last 100 years, and yet it's declining in power. Whereas Cuba is a small island nation subjected to... Wait, is it an island? An island nation entirely? Anyway, it's a small nation subjected to huge amounts of Western interference in the country, and yet they've maintained themselves for a considerable amount of time. Cuba is definitely far more competent than your racist dogshit administration.
It's a functioning one. They've made a choice, and that is they would rather have political control over their people than they would have an economy that functions. And they've gotten away with it for 60-something years because they've had donors, the Soviet Union, and now most recently Venezuela, but that's now gone. So the people in control in Cuba have a choice to make. They can either have a real country with a real economy where their people can prosper, or they can continue with their failing dictatorship that's going to lead to systemic and societal collapse. So it's a very stark and dramatic choice, and it's one we hope to make the right one. We don't have an interest in a destabilized Cuba, but that would be their fault because they refuse to allow the people of Cuba to have either economic or political freedom for that matter.
I like how Cuba have apparently had a great option for getting economic freedom, you know.
And you have a lot of people in this country that want to go back to...
It's better that these discussions are live streamed. The veneer of American imperialism is gone. The world can see America for what it is. Yeah, I think most people could have always seen it, but you're right. Like, seeing so brazenly how these people just talk about interfering in other countries and taking them down is amazing. And on the topic of Tucker, I really like that Louis Allday tweet that I brought up a while about Candace Owens that's basically a means to channel real anger towards Israeli imperialism, Israeli settler colonialism, and also, you know, like ire towards the American empire into conspiracy theories and not meaningful politics that will challenge it.
Cuba and help Cuba. A lot of people have left, you know, they came in penniless, they didn't have anything, and they become very rich people in our country, and they want to very much go back and help Cuba. So that's something that Cuba has that a lot of other places don't have. Peter?
I do want to ask you about Minnesota, but first, just more on topic. President Zelensky said that he was watching with the rest of the world as you made this order to go and capture Nicolas Maduro. And he said, if that's how it works with dictators, then the United States knows what to do next. Sounds like he wants you to go and capture Vladimir Putin. Would you ever order a mission to go and capture Vladimir Putin?
Well, I don't think it's going to be necessary.
Empires always cannibalize themselves. I think there's also just this drive amongst people who view themselves as like really all-powerful leaders that would just drives them towards destruction. Like Napoleon. There's a reason Napoleon died pretty much powerless after conquering everything, you know? Like being one of the most successful generals ever, but took it a bit too far and ended up with nothing. There's a reason that Hitler, who looked like he was going to win, you know, the Second World War, who achieved major victories very quickly, ended up dead in a bunker, you know, with nothing left of the not only the Third Reich, but also Germany as a whole had almost destroyed his country in like a suicidal sort of stand against, you know, his adversaries, against the Allied powers, I guess. And Trump will probably not end in one of those ways, but I think he will end his administration with declined American power. I think getting rid of your soft power options, I think getting rid of USAID is a very bad idea that will have long-term consequences when perhaps you have another Democratic administration in power next who's not so interested in naked imperialism like this, but probably does still engage in it, but isn't so willing to take the kind of like huge steps that that Trump was. Napoleon didn't do phone parties with his homies. That's where he went wrong. Marco will not make such blunders. Yeah, I also guess that he didn't come from a family of drug traffickers as well. If Napoleon had tried that, maybe he wouldn't have ended up with fucking nothing.
I think we're going to have I've always had a great relationship with him. I'm very disappointed. I settled 8 wars. I thought this would be in the middle of the pack or maybe one of the easier ones. And I don't know if you know, Peter, the last month, they lost 31,000.
Ain't no way the US will try to kidnap Putin. I mean, probably not, no. One thing that is true, though, or one thing that I don't really know enough about is, I think some of you were talking about this, or someone I know was talking about this. A lot of Russian air defenses have basically never been tested against, you know, like a Western like aerial power. So it remains to be seen if they could actually do it. Does he really think he has ended 8 wars? Yeah, I mean, it's just a slogan for his base. Also, as old and as decrepit and silly as Trump is, all of this is messaging that's told to him that will resonate well with his base, and he ran on this notion that he was a peace president, and if he keeps repeating it, maybe they'll believe it. And he does actually kind of like Russia and thinks that Europe funding Ukraine is an oversight. It's also something that the American empire, like before this guy got into power, had to reckon with, and also during. America used a huge amount of THAAD interceptors with Israel. It's sending a huge amount of weaponry over to Ukraine as well. And what if, you know, and if it's to be believed that America wants this long-term war with China, it's not great to be giving away all your military equipment, even if you're getting paid with it. It takes time to make, you know. So America doesn't really want that smoke for that reason in part now. Like, Ukraine held up a lot better than I think people initially thought that it might do, but Russia is just kind of slowly grinding them down, and what do? Just throw more stuff, throw more and more money and weaponry and bodies at it?
Them Russian soldiers, and the Russian economy is doing poorly. I think we're going to end up getting it settled. I wish we could have done it quicker because a lot of people are dying, and mostly soldiers. You know, they get hit in Kiev and they get hit a little bit here and there, and people are dying there too. But largely, it's the soldier population. When you have 30,000, 31,000 soldiers dying in a period of a month, 27,000 the month before, 26,000 the month before that, that's bad stuff. So
it's also crazy because comparably to Palestine, there is literally no comparison in terms of civilian casualties, and Russia could do that. It's not like Russia doesn't possess the capacity to just mass kill civilians to the same extent Israel did.
As you know, President Biden gave $350 billion to Ukraine to fight, and we would never get that back, although I did make a rare earth deal to get it back, so we will be getting it back, but shouldn't have done that. It was a bad thing to do. I will say that right now, because I was able to get NATO to up GDP from 2% to 5%, NATO's got a lot of money, and they're paying for everything. We're not losing any money. We're making a lot of money, I guess, if you think of it, because we're selling them military equipment. They're probably giving it to Ukraine. But we're selling them to NATO military equipment. We're getting full price and all of that. But that's not a big deal to me. What is a big deal is stopping a war where 30,000 people are being killed every single month.
the vice president yesterday suggested that Renee Good,
We'll just play this because it's more Renee Good stuff.
who was killed by this ICE officer, was part of a broad left-wing network.
Jesus Christ, this guy looks a bit like Brace Belden. Can I zoom in? No, I probably can't. But this guy looks a little bit like Brace Belden from a distance. Can you see him? This guy here.
What has your team told you about this broad left-wing network? Who is in charge of it? Who's part of it? What's it called?
Well, I haven't seen the vice president's statement, but he's generally very accurate. I hate to say. Look, I watched that yesterday, and there are a lot of different forms to it. But there was a woman screaming, "Shame, shame, shame, shame." She was a agitator, probably a paid agitator, but in my opinion, she was an agitator, a very high-level agitator, so professional. She wouldn't stop screaming. I said, this isn't a normal situation. This is a professional troublemaker, because you heard it and I had it. Now, I will say this. The news sort of turned her down, turned her off, because you're trying to watch. She was so loud and so...
It seems that Trump thinks paid agitators are just people who are more competent at shouting than anyone else.
So crazy and just not normal. When somebody sees something like that, they don't go screaming and the same words. So I guess you could say...
Renee Good also wasn't screaming in the video. What are you talking about?
Professional, but I didn't think she did a very good job. You have agitators.
So simultaneously, she's a paid agitator who didn't do a very good job.
And we will always be protecting ICE, and we're always going to be protecting our Border Patrol and our law enforcement. Yeah.
In your conversations with these oil
from H3 clown to international murder junkie. I haven't even mentioned that. I can't wait to go into, because I mean the reason I want to talk about that is just libs basically. Libs are a really interesting topic on Iran because yeah, we'll get into that shortly.
Executives today, did you provide any security?
But thank you for the 2,200 Chilean pesos, Thomas.
Guarantees so that they can do their work safely in Venezuela. Yeah. And separately, Mr. President,
they will have those guarantees, yes.
And separately, Mr. President, I'm curious in terms of the future of Venezuela. Do you see Venezuela, now led by Delcy Rodriguez, as an ally of the U.S.? Is that the way that you view that country
right now? Well, right now they seem to be an ally, and I think it'll continue to be an ally. And we don't want to have Russia there. We don't want to have China there. And by the way, we don't want Russia or China going to Greenland, which if we don't take Greenland, you're going to have Russia or China as your next door neighbor. That's not going to happen.
Russia and China taking Greenland is not like a justification because this guy is literally closer with Russia and China, well, Russia in particular, to some extent China, I guess, than Europe is. You could just ask Denmark to do this. You could just ask Denmark, hey, increase the amount of patrols there. You could say, oh, we'll support it to some extent.
Ridiculous.
They'd probably do it, but no, he needs to take it. Yeah, no way he remembers who Rodriguez is. Her wife was hilarious with the taunting. Go back to the donut shop, big boy. Yeah, her wife, I mean... That video where you can clearly see that she was not going to run over the guy that she's literally turning away is insane that is out there in public. The guy also being a white supremacist with a Filipino wife is like... I mean, him being a white supremacist is like the least surprising thing ever. However, him also having a Filipino wife is the least surprising thing for a white supremacist.
The white...
Mr. President, thank you. You just said that these companies would have security guarantees if they...
But thank you for the 5,500. When she's telling him to get lunch, it's very funny. Apparently Renee's widow blames... I've seen the video of her being like, it's my fault, it's my fault. It's very sad. Sorry, Alan Greenspan. I fucked something up here. I know, right.
Have security go in on the ground in Venezuela.
They will have.
And what is your plan there actually for these companies and those Americans who are going to be on the ground working for these companies?
Well, there are going to be Americans. I assume they're going to be using a lot of Americans, but they're going to be using a lot of people from Venezuela and other places, I would imagine. But I would think that mostly they'll be using Venezuelan workers. They have a lot of great workers. They have a very high unemployment rate, and they have workers that are very familiar with taking oil out of the ground. Yeah.
By the way, also quite like an interesting concept. If you're installing new oil rigs and new oil equipment, how would you think that like average Venezuelans are just going to be able to use that? That just unemployed Venezuelans are just going to be doing that?
How long do you think the Ayatollah will be in power after what we've seen play out on the ground there? When is the U.S. going to get involved now that reports of protesters being killed on the ground?
So Iran's in big trouble. It looks to me that the people are taking over certain cities that nobody thought were really possible just a few weeks ago. We're watching the situation very carefully. I've made the statement very strongly that if they start killing people like they have in the past, we will get involved. We'll be hitting them very hard where
600 people have been killed in Iran, apparently, at minimum. So his statements are pretty empty thus far, but it remains to be seen.
it hurts. And that doesn't mean boots on the ground, but it means hitting them very, very hard where it hurts. So we don't want that to happen. There have been cases like this where President Obama totally backed down. But this is something pretty incredible that's happening in Iran. It's an amazing thing to watch. They've done a bad job. They've treated their people very badly, and now they're being paid.
It's also so ironic because he's killing people. Mossad operation. I mean, we'll talk about it, but no, this isn't entirely a Mossad operation. It's definitely not entirely a Mossad operation. And I think that the thing with Iran is that makes it so difficult to like hear these people talk about it is no one actually gives a shit about dictatorship or murders in the Middle East. If you're like a liberal, if you're someone who's claiming that we just shouldn't elect Trump and then everything will be fine. You know? Some source on Twitter is claiming 10,000 people were killed. Who believes that? Unfortunately, a sizable amount of people.
Back. So let's see what happens. We're watching it. We're watching it very closely. Go ahead, please.
Thank you so much, Mr. President.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. Do you have any comments in reaction to the recent attacks by the Syrian government alignment groups against US-backed Kurdish
Okay, right. Oh, actually, wait, I want to hear what you said to this, but then we're done. We're going to Iran.
Forces in Aleppo, Syria, which killed dozens of civilians?
They also targeted mosques, 99% Muslim country, by the way. Yeah, but you do know that, like, not all people who constitute Muslims are religious. You know that, right? And there are many people who are, like, technically raised Muslim or even are culturally and would put Muslim on a census and don't practice Islam and specifically view the, like, a mosque and stuff as an example or, like, a symbol of repression of the government. I mean, there has undeniably been a lot of disinformation. And by the way, the whole Pahlavi stuff is like a disinfluence campaign being run by Mossad and Israel. Most Iranians are not that interested in the Shah. The only Iranians in the diaspora who I've ever met who are interested in the Shah are actually like older people who live there. I've not really met many younger people who are but they're like older people who lived there a while ago. The younger people who are people who live in like a fantasy world, and this is something that's pretty common in a multitude of different places. People who've never experienced living under the Shah, who've never experienced anything, and so they base their views on like misremembered fantasies that never existed about like a really free and fair time under the Shah, when if they were actually dissidents about anything, you know. Sanctions create unrest. Yes, sanctions obviously create unrest, and the sanctions that they've inflicted on Iran are not brilliant for the Iranian people. They're not brilliant for the Iranian people, and they cause a huge amount of suffering for Iranians. However, what I will say is that there are also major examples of economic mismanagement by the Islamic Republic. There's corruption and many other issues, and, you know, brutal repression of dissidents on both the left and right.
And displacing many families. Does your administration bring peace between the Kurds and the Syrian government?
I want to see peace, yes, I do. The Kurds and the Syrian government, we get along with both, as you know, very well. They have been natural enemies over the years, but we get along both. And
Calling Kurds and Syrians natural enemies is crazy.
We want to see Syria succeed. And so far, I think they are succeeding, but this is just breaking out, and we want to see that stopped.
Okay, right. We're going to end this watching of this there. Because next we're going to watch this. I'm just going to peel through for the Iran stuff. I have clips of it, but I just want to see if there's anything longer. It's instantaneous when he talks about this. Oh, Trevor Tales. Thank you for the Wong gifted. BB, enjoy your new membership. Enjoy all of the emojis. Elab, you are never ever, even if you fixed it, it seems that it will refuse to give you it refuses to give you your thing. And on the topic of eyebrows, Thomas, thanks for the donation. I look like the Shah of Iran. One of the best moments in The Sopranos.
Don't get me wrong, I love Dom more than anybody. We don't know if Tony was behind this.
It's payback for Vito.
So what the fuck?
Ballrick to blow up his eye while you... I know what 9/11 sucker says I look like... Now we wipe him off the planet. You know that fat cocksucker says I look like the Shah of Iran? Who the...
He really does look like the Shah of Iran. In case you didn't know, he really looks like the Shah of Iran, Phil Leotardo, in... I don't know who actually plays him. Frank Vincente, maybe, or something? Is that wrong?
It is utterly ridiculous.
I don't know who he's played by. Frank Vincent, sorry. Frank Vincent really does look like the Shah of Iran. Oh, Henry, thanks for the 5 gifted. Incredibly kind. The dreams of giving the incredibly kind donation. Thank you as always for the support. Oh, Thomas got a membership. He really looks like the Shah of Iran. It is actually amazing. Whoever was writing The Sopranos at the time, their knowledge of Middle Eastern politics, whoever wrote this episode, because Phil Leotardo really does look like the Shah of Iran. And this guy is... Reza Pahlavi is very, 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 very funny. I find him hilarious. The moral of The Sopranos is the anti-Italian racism is fake when it's real, and it's justified. And when it's real... If we had not done what we did, I literally would be the second-class serf for British settler elites. Which country are you talking about? I can't condemn because my country... What country are you talking about there, Charlie? Frank Vincent does look like the Shah of Iran. Yeah, crazy-looking guy. Have some respect. The man spent 20 years in the can. It is not actually known how long Phil spent in the can, but it is heavily implied that he might have spent 20 years in the can. Okay, so here we have Trump, where he looks a bit better with Caroline Leavitt. Caroline, leave it, yeah?
A little bit quickly. They just said very, very rough.
Sir, on Iran, have they crossed your red line yet to trigger a response?
Well, no, they're starting to, it looks like, and there seem to be some people killed that aren't supposed to be killed. These are...
Sorry for laughing, because obviously, like, hundreds of people have been killed in Iran.
It is utterly ridiculous.
But it's just how he's saying, like, oh, some people who weren't meant to be killed, as if there were people in Iran who were meant to be killed. By the, Mediocre, thanks for the 7 months. I humbly request healing vibes from the chat to cure my sniffles. Also, Chris Isaac mogged you when it comes to... Yeah, I mean, Isaac, as he's mentioned, has, like, sort of Spanish like family members, so not really surprising he mogged me there. But I was watching the Malcolm X movie last night, the Spike Lee film. I don't know if any of you know this, but a very, very, very young Michael Imperioli is interviewing Denzel Washington, who throughout the film increasingly blurred the lines as to whether he was Malcolm X or not. So I'm not really sure who Malcolm X was. I think he might have been Denzel Washington.
They're violent. If you call them leaders, I don't know if they're leaders or just they rule through violence. But we're looking at it very seriously.
By the way, also, this notion that any government doesn't rule through violence is very, very, very funny, because obviously the US rules through violence.
The military's looking at it, and we're looking at some very strong options. We'll make a determination.
Which options have you been briefed on? Are you meeting with senior officials?
I'm going to tell you
Are you meeting with your
Am I going to really, are you asking me to say what will they do, where will we attack, when, and at what angle will we attack from?
Are you considering I'm with the U.S. White House TV pool. I'm wondering, are you being briefed on options? I'm with CNN, sir.
Why don't you just say I'm with CNN? She says, I'm with the White House pool.
Yes.
And I say, what? You're with CNN. You're with fake news. Because CNN is fake news. Go ahead, give me a question.
Can I ask how you're balancing and
God, imagine how pathetic that feels, just getting on this flight. Ugh.
how you're deciding your response, the balance between helping protesters versus hindering them? Because I imagine that's a delicate balance to strike.
I mean, some of the protesters were killed through the stampeding. I mean, there's so many of them.
Where's this stampeding thing? I've not seen anyone else claim this. Has anyone else heard this apart from him?
And some were shot. We get a full report. I'm getting an hourly report, and we're going to make a determination.
Sir, the son of the disposed Shah, and some military leaders are...
Also, my God, the level of competence required to be a journalist in America. The son of the disposed Shah. Deposed. It's deposed. So just to quickly note, here's the BBC's reporting. Now, the BBC may not be... I wouldn't necessarily trust everything that the BBC says. However, I do not doubt that a large amount of people have been killed. And I think, sorry, there's actually a tweet that I will talk about later that I've just seen. Shahzadeh is a linguist more than he is a political analyst, but he's lived in Iran at least, and some of his stuff is interesting. I have met several people who know very little about Iran, but are effectively pro-Mullah because of how negatively polarized they are by Zionist Pahlavists. By the way, this is something that needs to be spoken about, and I think I will talk about. It is a major problem that, like, racist degenerates are just... leading the solidarity with Iran protests, But here's what the BBC is saying. At least 648 protesters have been killed in Iran following a deadly crackdown or anti-government demonstrations, according to a Norway-based human rights group. There's also a lot of indication from the images coming out that there was that this was the kind of thing. A widespread internet blackout is making it difficult to accurately report what is happening in Iran. Our reporter spoke to someone via the Starlink satellite service who says the world should know what's happening to us inside. Protests started over 2 weeks ago over worsening economic situation. Here's how we got here. Among those killed in the protests, it's just mentioning the names, Amir Mohammed Kukhan.
It is utterly ridiculous.
Kukhan and 23-year-old student Rubina Aminian. Owen Jones either, it seems like, however much I confuse the two of you. Owen Jones either. Owen Jones hasn't been terrible. Owen Jones hasn't been terrible thus far. I am not someone who, I don't think, if you've ever met Iranians, there are plenty of unpleasant and really horrifying Iranian diasporists who are just pro-Israel, who goad people, who want mass killings in Palestine. But there are also a massive amount of Iranians who are just discontent with the experience of living there with repressive governments. And none of us want to live under repressive governments. And I think we need to fight against that. I think also there's kind of this problem of I think there's also this problem of I think there's also this major problem. I think there's also this major problem of just being unequivocally pro anything that isn't the West, Palestine diaspora friends is sharing I'm annoyed that the narrative that leftists don't care about Iran. It's annoying as fuck. Calling out college students on the 1st of January for not protesting as if they're not on break first. Well, also... what is the expectation? To protest in solidarity? Because that's not necessarily what's happening with Palestine. Our country's already sanctioned Iran. Our media already tells us that Iran kills protesters, that Iran is authoritarian and Iran is violent. Our government do not tell us the truth about Israel. This notion I also find this notion particularly frustrating that Iran isn't reported on in the mainstream media. Like, the BBC is running a live thread on Iranian protests when last night there was seemingly...
It is utterly ridiculous.
A reduced amount of protests over him to reinstate his views. Tamir Poras, Owen Jones. Thanks for the donation, Thomas. Thanks for the 5,500, Owen Jones. I've not seen that. Maybe I will watch that. That does actually sound interesting. But yeah, I mean, I don't doubt that Owen Jones would speak over someone who doesn't speak how he wants. But there was, like, even today, like, people also just overestimate what's happening with any protest movement. Like, you know, every protest these days has apparently destroyed every regime ever.
Urging you to take action in Iran? Is that a serious option? And are you listening?
People have been shot, and we're looking at it. Yeah, please.
Are you going to go to Venezuela, or is Secretary Rubio going to go to Venezuela anytime soon?
Yeah, I mean, so Trump is threatened, but I don't know that this is actually going to come to fruition. Okay, so here's the closing of this.
Right, and back on Iran, the Ayatollah said that he thinks that the protesters are trying to, quote, please you. Do you see it that way? What's your message to the Iranian people right now?
I don't know that they're trying to please me.
Also, aren't Iran just a French of the Middle East? I know it's probably the other way around, but either way, it's the same. I mean, Iran has had a lot of protests. Iran has had a lot of major protest movements. 2009 Green Revolution, Masha Amini protests, huge amounts of protests about what's going about discontent. Iran has real issues that people want to kind of, like, see change around. However, you know, I'm talking more here now about how apparently in every context, every protest is destroying every regime. Like, every government is going to be taken down. Do you remember how overinflated the anti-Hamas protests were in Gaza? No doubt that there are people who are discontented with Hamas, but the notion that one protest represented the destruction of the Hamas, or like the end of Hamas, is farcical. It's farcical. It's just liberal fantasies for people who don't care about Palestine, who don't care about Palestine, who don't want to speak up on that and make themselves feel better by talking about Iran. They don't give a shit about repressive governments, because if they did, they'd be working against Israel with every fiber of their being. Hey, Sophie, good to see you. Iran is the New York of the Middle East.
Named a boulevard after me, but that's pretty pleasing. But I don't think they're trying to please. I think they just want peace. They want to have freedom. The protesters are after freedom. Iran has not allowed freedom for a long time. And the protesters, I don't think they're trying to appease me. They're trying to get somebody to help them. They're under siege. And now it looks like they're being shot, which is a very bad thing.
Like, it doesn't look like they're being shot, by the way. They are being shot. Like, Iranians are being shot and Iranians are being killed. The US treats Arabs as a monolith. They don't give a shit about their peace or liberation. No, none of these people do give a shit about their liberation. The anti-Hamas protests to move a hostage rail. I've heard that story about the anti-Hamas protests. Genuinely, I don't know. But yeah, no one cares. Like, no one cares about Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, persecutes any kind of political activism. So does the United Arab Emirates. And, like, we don't have major currents within the British or the American government who are held entirely under the sway of the Iranian government, you know. It's not like a major thing. Whereas in the UK, entire political parties like the Labour Party, the Conservative Party, Reform UK, work on furthering the interests of the United Arab Emirates, a repressive dictatorial government that has been cracking down on activism there for decades through violent means of torture and repression.
Iranian opposition leaders as this is unfolding?
Yeah.
What's the message to them?
Yeah. You're going to find out pretty soon.
You said that help is on.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. With the beautiful red hair.
Thank you.
seen pieces of it. It's incredible, I tell you. I think it's going to do, you know, she did a book, and the book was a big #1 bestseller, and this is a movie, and it seems to be captivating a lot of people's attention. It's very good. Because here we go again. Yeah, it's going to be doing the premiere at the Trump Kennedy Center. Yeah.
Sorry, there's more about Iran, so I'm just going to watch that.
Be very exciting. It's a very hard ticket, I can tell you. Everybody, Wayne Gretzky and his wife Janet, beautiful wife, great wife. They said last night, "Gee, I want to go to." Everybody wants tickets to the premiere. I think it's going to be great.
Is there any timing on the mortgage bond purchases you announced last week?
On the what? Mortgage?
Mortgage bond purchases by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac?
No, they're already doing it. They've started. Yeah, they started the process.
But yeah, like, once again, we have people in our country and government who unequivocally support the mass murder, mass torture of Egyptians. And, like, Zionists don't care about that. They literally only care about people who they deem to be an enemy. I can show solidarity and I can show support of people in Iran who want, you know, reform in their country, who want change, who want to live under something that is not necessarily hugely repressive. You know? Like, it's undeniable. But these people are actively furthering it, and it's this problem of, like, continued American imperial dominance all over the world that, unfortunately, every attempt at genuine revolution gets co-opted by beautiful dictatorial regimes.
And it's having a great impact.
That are backed by the US.
Interest rates are falling very rapidly. Not only for that reason, for other reasons too, but interest rates are falling very rapidly.
Do you have any sense that Iran wants
With no help from the Fed, because we have a total stiff at the Fed.
Do you have any, can I ask you, the announcement on the cap on credit card interest rates
Yeah.
that came out on Friday, what happens if the credit card companies don't comply by the January date?
Well, then they're in violation of the law.
And do you have congressional
Very
support?
severe things. No, I want a cap on credit card interest rates because, you know, some of them are 28, almost 30%. And that people don't know they're paying 30%. The people out there, you know, they're working and they have no idea that they're paying 30%. No way. We're putting a 1-year cap at 10%, and that's it. They know it. They've really abused the public. The credit card companies have totally abused it. I'm not going to let it happen.
Do you sense any willingness from Iran to engage diplomatically with you or perhaps negotiate on their nuclear program?
With Iran?
Yeah, do you think they want to engage diplomatically with you?
They do. They called
They called you? Is it still
yesterday.
an option? Is it still an option?
Iran called to negotiate. Yesterday. The leaders of Iran called. They want to negotiate. I think they're tired of being beat up by the United States.
Can you share any details on that call?
Iran wants to negotiate, yes.
Is this the reading like a US-backed coup? Like, I know Khamenei is bad, but is the only alternative Pahlavi? The problem is that, like, I don't even think Pahlavi is the real alternative. I think that a lot of these people looking in from the outside, like, Pahlavi does not have the legitimacy to go into Iran and rule it. Many people have bitter memories of the Pahlavi government there. There are some people who look back on it with fondness, but anyone who's politically engaged is not going to look back on that with, like, fondness, you know, because it was an oppressive, brutal, authoritarian regime.
Utterly ridiculous.
I think that there genuinely are discontents in Iran, and I think it's kind of, like, foolish to pretend that, you know, to pretend that there's nothing going on in Iran. However, unfortunately, it's just this really problematic thing, and kind of a lot of diasporists really just expect Israel or America to like interfere in Iran and then everything will be fine, you know, and it's not going to be fine. That is not going to fix the problems that Iranians are facing, and it may end up in a situation where many, if that does happen, that many Iranians end up longing for the Islamic Republic, which is really saying something because people are discontented with it.
We may meet with them. I mean, a meeting is being set up.
But never ever fall for this thing that, like, this is just entirely Zionists and Israelis doing this. Like, Israel does run disinfluence campaigns. It's undeniable. Haaretz, of all places, has, like, a long read about this that you can read if you want. I took notes from it and stuff, but It's just like about the Israeli influence operation aiming to install Reza Pahlavi as Shah of Iran. Like, it's talking about Gila Gamliel, who's like an Israeli politician that's been working with the Shah's son, Reza Pahlavi. He's not the fucking Shah, he's no one. The son of the last Shah of Iran. They've been working with him to try and run like this disinfluence campaign. You can read all about it in this article. It talks all about it and how this is undeniably like done through AI, that there was information about the strikes on Evin prison that were put out before any news outlet was reporting on them. They pretended that they were Iranians in the local area, but they weren't. Like, and also you have all of these weaponized figures. Like, I know some people... I don't even know how to describe him. Tommy Robinson is a paid right-wing disinfluencer who works in service of the Israeli government that is trotted out for basically any political cause that he's needed. Like, all he's been doing is posting about how he is massively in support. He's paid up by the United Arab Emirates. He's paid up for by Israel. There is like this whole nexus of people who've been promoted by Elon Musk. That's why he's such like a large content creator on here. He's promoted by Elon Musk because Elon Musk likes him.
But we may have to act because of what's happening before the meeting. Right. But a meeting is being set up. Iran called. They want to negotiate. Thank you very much, everybody.
There's only one other clip that I want to show, which is this one, which I'm not going to pull from the actual video, and it has nothing to do with what we're talking about. It's Trump talking about his bad experience of turbulence.
When will you meet with Machado this week?
Looking for something to grab here, because it's going to get rough, and I don't seem to be in a very... I think you did this to me. You put me in a position where there's absolutely nothing to grab.
Mr. President.
So I'm looking for something to grab, and it's not going to be Carol.
I like how Carolyn Levitt literally like moves away as well.
Something to grab, and it's not going to be Caroline.
Mr. President, oil companies make commitments to you, sir? Have any oil companies made commitments to the United States?
But it doesn't help. It definitely doesn't help the Iranian cause that this is how people are posting about it. I only hope the Iranian protesters know that millions of hearts are with them and how much we admire their courage. Iran appears to be unusually full of Gryffindors. Someone said, this is actually a good comparison, Justin Bieber hopes Anne Frank would have been a believer. Your post has the same trashy and tasteless vibe as this. This is just someone who has offered no support to the Palestinian cause, as millions upon millions of people have been killed, you know? Like, yeah. And I also think that, like, I think generally human beings have an inclination to live under some form of government that they believe is accountable to them. And I don't think Western democracy has really sated that desire. And I think in many ways, it's almost been a hysterical thing because we continually elect and support these governments that apparently if we just vote for them, they're going to be accountable to us. And then every single time, they are absolutely not accountable to us. But still, human beings have an inclination towards something that is accountable to them, that serves their interests. However, in the context of... the Middle East, people for the longest time believed that Middle Easterners were just destined to live under despots. They are not. The Arab Spring really did prove this. But people have funny perceptions because I don't know if they've ever really bothered to read about the Arab Spring. And like a lot of people think the Arab Spring just happened because of Bouazizi, who is the Tunisian man who set himself on fire, and then social media. That's not why the Arab Spring happened. There's a good book that I have behind me, which is about the economics of it, but it's called The People Want. The People Want book. If you just search The People Want book by Gilbert Achcar, it's a pretty good book that talks about, like, different cases of the Arab Spring. The places where the Arab Spring had the greatest success was were places, not just where there was like social media, but where there had been years of sustained protests in the country. They were also places that generally had very strong trade unions. In Bahrain, in Egypt, in Tunisia as well, there had been sustained protests for years, sustained discontent, and many of them came at the shifts of regimes. Iran is in a very serious position in terms of that. Khamenei is maybe going to appoint his son. Khamenei, is maybe going to appoint his son, and it's hard to know whether his son has a similar level of legitimacy to, Khamenei. Like, who knows? And I'm not sure that he really does. But yeah, people really do post that, like, the Islamic Republic is over, that there's a revolution going on, and it's hard to really know. Like, I mean, today these are apparently scenes in Iran in support of the government, and they're pretty sizable. And I mean, there have been sizable protests against them. I mean, who knows how reliable Middle East Observer is, but I've seen this in many other places. There have been like The Guardian has reported in it. Iran holds pro-government rally as regime seeks to downplay protests. There are tens of thousands of people attending them. They went to Enqilab, which means revolution, I believe. Iranian uprising against Revolution Square against American Zionism, Zionist terrorism. There they listened to a speech by the Speaker of Parliament, Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, who rallied against Western imperialism, railed against it. Ghalibaf said Iran was fighting a four-front war, an economic war, psychological warfare, military war against the US and Israel, and today again a war against terrorism. There are very, very, very serious protests that have occurred across the vast majority of Iran, from places like Kermanshah, Tehran, Karaj, Zahedan, Bandar Abbas, Mashhad, Tabriz. Like, look, it's occurring all over Iran. And I've seen a lot of Iranian experts, people like Ali Ansari, people who are not like really big fans of the Islamic Republic, who are just kind of like, no, this isn't going to be the end. It's maybe moving more towards something like a challenge of the actual regime. And yeah, I do think, unfortunately, like, Westerners see protesters in a country that they don't like, and they love it. But when they see major protests from Palestinians, they find every excuse to justify the mass killings. Like, look, innocent people will be being killed in Iran. There have definitely been shrines that have been attacked. There are people who have killed security officers, who have engaged in militancy. I don't think that defines every single thing going on in Iran, yet simultaneously, the same people who are like, why is everyone not talking about Iran, relitigate things like the Great March of Return and find every excuse to portray Palestinians as violent. They are the same people who wish to tell you, actually, the word intifada is just bad by its very nature, when in the first intifada, it was a spectacularly non-violent event on the behalf of the Palestinians, yet simultaneously on the hands of the Israelis, it was a brutal and repressive crackdown where Palestinians were asking serious questions about getting a two-state. That's what the first intifada was about, by the way. Huge, massively popular, non-violent resistance. Israel repressed that for decades. They repress to this day people stone throwing, people engaging in non-militant resistance, and yet they are the same people who and yet the backers of that in the West are the ones who tell you, oh, everyone has to be with Iran, everyone there is peaceful. None of this is always going to be peaceful. None of this challenge of a highly militarized regime that is engaged in like incredibly repressive tactics are going to be who have used highly repressive tactics are gonna be entirely non-violent. It just isn't gonna happen. Yet in the context of Iran, every excuse is made, but in the context of Palestine, no excuse is made. And there are many other issues of what's happening in Iran, such as the fact that it's kind of leaderless in a sense, and many of the uprisings of 2010 and 2011 were leaderless, which in some ways was to their merit, and it was predominantly led by martyrs and figures who were dead, like Khaled Said in Egypt and Bouazizi in Tunisia. But yeah, people just don't really care about Middle Eastern history or change within the country. They would rather live in like a fantasy world. They don't want to read. They don't want to reckon with anything going on there. And I do think that this isn't just a criticism that you should just push onto like rightoids, because definitely they've been shit on this. But like a leftist who tells you entirely a Mossad CIA op, you can talk about that stuff going on without pretending that Iranians are just all lovers of the Islamic Republic, you know? It's been very disheartening to see many people I respect on our side completely cede support for the Iraqi Kurds to the worst elements of the right. What do you mean by that? I'm not sure what you mean by that. Getting support from the different ethnic groups and religious groups in Iran is like when Harry Potter, Reza Pahlavi, got all of the Horcruxes. I mean, unfortunately, there are many people who understand the world through a J.K. Rowling lens. But like, a guy who I really do not like, called Noah Feldman, whose book is a bit stupid because he didn't actually really... he didn't really account for like certain uprisings such as Bahrain, which was a majorly powerful and successful revolution that was put down by Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. But in his book, it does open with a kind of the Arab Winter, a tragedy by Noah Feldman. Some of the concepts in it are somewhat interesting if you can get over how repugnant he is as an individual. But yeah, what was I going to say? What was I going to say? What was I going to say? Oh, one of the things he kind of things he talks about is how a lot of people in these places are kind of in favor of armies taking power and place too much faith in militaries. I fucking hated that book. I don't blame you, Addison. I did not think it was a great book. The only interesting concept I thought was how he talked about the slogan and the kind of expectation that someone would come in and, you know, would come in and basically do the change. And I think in Iran, and in the context of diaspora people in Iran, they really have this belief that someone is going to come in like Israel and Iran, and Israel or America, and that they have any interest beyond balkanizing Iran and making it incredibly weak. I don't think Jolani has the capacity to lead a united Syria. By the way, I think all of the cracks with that are already showing, and I think it's a major issue. I really do. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot to be said about what's happening in Iran, and don't worry, it doesn't end here. But yeah, it's just... But like, Trump is not fixing this, and it is just kind of this problem
Latest news over...
with kind of looking at any revolutionary moment in any revolutionary moment, in any space right now. Unfortunately, it's tinged by Western imperialism. But I had a very good Marxist lecturer, like a brilliant Marxist lecturer, who I remember I was like, oh, I don't think change can occur within this period of American hegemony. And he was like, do you really think that we should rob people of agency? And agency is a stupid word, but I do think people have the capacity to make meaningful change in different places. Recommend One Day Everyone Will Be Against This by Omar Al-Akkad. I've not read that, but I'm sure it's good. I'm familiar with Omar Al-Akkad.
Overseas, MS Now has learned that President Trump has been shown potential plans for action in Iran amid an intense crackdown on protesters in that country. Those options include possible military strikes. Here's what he said just on Air Force One earlier tonight.
But what is the military option? Like what, you kill Khamenei and then someone just replaces him?
Iran said that they would targets if you struck. Are you concerned about?
If they do that, we'll consider things targets they wouldn't believe. If they do that, we will hit them at levels that they've never been hit before. They won't even believe it.
Do you think
I have options that are so strong. So I mean, if they did that, it'll be met with a very, very powerful force.
In the meantime, the protests across Iran are growing louder and more intense and more defined by.
This is also something that I don't know is true. It looks that after some very, very, very significant protests, they have sort of reduced.
The day, an economic collapse certainly triggered these protests, but they have now expanded beyond just economics to include political and social rights. And the Iranian government has responded with deadly.
And a lot of these people in the international community, like a lot of these international idiots, are just inciting for huge amounts of Iranians to get themselves killed or to get themselves in legal trouble in the countries that they're in. Like telling them to, Reza Pahlavi was just like, go and put the Iranian flag on all of these places and do this and that. And it's like, hey, there might be real consequences for people whilst you sit comfortably in America being paid by Israel and other disinfluence campaigns. Not to say that people shouldn't protest. It is a right to protest. However, simultaneously, a lot of these people on the outside are just like baying for the destruction of a country and, you know, it ending up in a situation that is like Syria. And once again, I'm not Iranian. And I have met many Iranians who are very nice people, who are genuinely leftists, who want real meaningful change. And as I keep on reiterating, don't fall into this like either this or that camp of no, they're all Mossad plants, or the Islamic Republic are perfect. It's not true. People do have difficulties there. This is all spawned out of economic protest, by the way.
Crackdowns amid widespread.
Completely cede support for the Iran protest to the worst elements of the right. I understand what you mean, as in like people haven't really don't really talk about it, but yeah. He said occupy buildings. Yeah, I mean, these are the same people who think that occupying a building in the context of Israel is anti-Semitic.
Internet blackouts. According to the U.S.-based human rights activist news agency, more than 500 people have been killed, with the real toll likely higher. Iran has seen major protests before in 2018, 2019, and of course the huge 2022 uprisings after the killing of Mahsa Jina Amini, who died in custody for improper covering. But this moment feels different. Trump, as we...
And like, also, simultaneously, we are sliding more and more towards dictatorship and authoritarianism in the West. Undeniably, this is something that we are sliding towards, and yet we are siding more and more towards dictatorship and authoritarianism. Palestine has really been the start of this, and most people don't care. I've never read all the Shah's Men. I've heard positive things. Fawaz Gerges's book, a recent book, which I can't remember the name of, is pretty good, and it's about like Mossadegh. I've only read the Mossadegh section, but I need to finish it. I just started reading Mari Ruti's book, The Singularity of Being, Lacan and the Immortal Within, if anyone's interested in that. It's a pretty good book. I'll copy the title and put it in the chat.
mentioned is publicly weighing options, using locked and loaded terminology, and suddenly framing himself along with many other Republicans, as well as the Israeli.
Protests are for economic reasons, and main cause of economic issues are the crippling sanctions. Sanctions that were put on because Israel had their puppet tear up the Obama Treaty. I mean, yes, and also objectively, the Obama Treaty was better for containing Iran's nuclear capabilities and capacities. But, you know, they don't really give a shit about any of that. However, there are undeniably things like water mismanagement going on in Iran. And there are groups, like ethnic groups within Iran, who are highly repressed and subjected to violence. And you'll meet many decent leftist scholars who talk about this kind of stuff, who study like groups like the Kurds. And I've never actually met anyone who studies like Baluchis in Iran, but you know, Iran is pretty repressive towards them.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu as defenders of the Iranian people's freedom.
Trump actually looks crazy there. He almost looks like he's doing blackface on the bottom half of his face, by the way. Like, wait. Look at the bottom half of his face there. It looks like he's trying to do blackface.
Joining us now is Trita Parsi, Executive Vice President of the Quincy Institute. Trita, it's good to have you with us. So information out of Iran has been limited because of the internet shutdown. We don't have a clear sense of what is happening on a day-to-day basis, but we know that tens of thousands, if not more, of Iranians across the country have taken to the city in unprecedented levels. It is happening in almost every province of the country. I think that in of itself speaks a lot. There are some glimpses of what's happening on the ground there, like this video earlier this week of a makeshift morgue in Tehran showing body sense of just
managed to get in touch with someone inside of Iran. It's become a little bit easier today, next to impossible yesterday and the day before because of a complete shutdown. And the testimonies are terrifying in terms of the level of violence that appears to have been used. At the same time, the protests last night and the night before were smaller than what it had been, what is our Thursday evening. Which is not necessarily a sign that the protests are dying down. These things have a rhythm of their own. They can slow down and pick up pace again, and I would suspect that by next Friday, they may actually go higher than they were past Friday, but it also depends on...
But yeah, I mean, this is not a terrible prediction. This may be the beginning. This may be the end of the protests for now. But it is a kind of dead end for Iran, because how does it really address these kind of things?
Of course, if Trump attacks Iran or not, which will be a major wildcard in all.
But once again, this is a country of 90 million people. And most people just talk about their desire for it to be bombed, for the regime to collapse there, with no thought of the consequences of what might come next, you know, for Iranians. Because they don't care. They care about their fantasies of good and bad world, and they care about, like, Israel winning and the West winning, and they think that that's going to produce good things. By the way, you can't see Trita Parsi currently. I'm covering his face. He's all right. Him and Matthew Petty have done some good work together.
All of this. These protests have been widespread, as you mentioned, but they're also very, very different. Almost all of them are taking place at night, except for in the beginning when there were actually shopkeepers and traders that were doing the protests. This is now a very different type of protest. The level of violence, both from the regime, but also from some elements in the protests, are also very different from what we've seen before. Images are coming out with police officers being turned on fire, etc. So this is really looking very, very different. This is not the type of protests that we saw just 3 years ago, demanding the fall of the regime, as well as more freedom for women. This is looking very different, and of course the regime's response has been absolutely brutal by all indications thus far.
Are there any signs of cracks in this regime?
Also, I'm not sure most people understand, like, what keeps a regime in power, and, like, how these things are kind of unique to different situations. Like, Assad really never lost control over, like, a middle class who were kind of like, if we don't have Assad, it'll probably be a lot worse for us. And so they were kind of a bit complacent and were just like, the situation is the situation. And in Iran, there are no doubt many, 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 many people. This is the same in any country. Many, many people who are just kind of like ambivalent and want to lead their everyday lives, and there is some semblance of normality. But what is making it very, very difficult with that is obviously water issues and also other issues pertaining specifically to like economic inflation and stuff. I think so too. Like any country that is an anti-imperial isn't necessarily a perfect place. No. I mean, but also Iran has the capacity to engage in some imperialism. Like, just because it confronts the West does not necessarily mean that it doesn't do, like, that it hasn't been repressive towards different ethnic groups inside its borders.
I've not seen anything yet. In fact, some signs go in the opposite direction. So, for instance, the head of the army, which usually, I mean, traditionally has stayed out of these things, and even when they have been pushed to actually be used against protesters, they have refused. But this time around, the head of the army said that they're ready to act. And it is, I think, a clear sign, because they do see the country as a whole being under threat as well, mindful of the threat.
It also doesn't help. It also doesn't help at all that a lot of this has been, like, fueled and problematized specifically by Israel and its supporters just influencing and doing all of this stuff online. Like, all of these people online who are like, we want our country blown up, no doubt that'll create support actually for the government there.
Coming from Israel, mindful of the threats coming from the Trump administration, mindful of the fact that Israeli media is openly talking about that they have Mossad agents inside of the country as part of the protest, etc. Mike Pompeo has been tweeting the same thing. All of these things have created a very different situation, and for the first time we're seeing that the head of the army is making a statement of this kind, and we've not seen any signs of at least any senior people from the regime defecting or moving in that direction.
What do you think are the dangers of sticking with the status quo vis-a-vis American policy towards Iran?
I also just wanted to pull this up because this is a good take by someone who I think has had good takes on Iran. I think that they are Iranian, considering that their profile picture is wherever the country of origin of your profile picture, that means they're where you're from. But just read this. People from the global south only have value or agency when they are placed in opposition to Western imperialism. If they ever dare to break out of this binary, they suddenly become puppets provoked by the West. No agitial capacity whatsoever unless their actions aligns with your view. This is not anti-imperialism. This is epistemic violence. This is your inability to think beyond your one-dimensional analysis masquerading as progressive politics. Like, that is not at all a bad take. Like, it is just not a bad take. It is categorically true. And this is coming from someone who is a pro-Palestinian Iranian person. Like, I'm sorry, people do have the capacity to be discontented with their regime, as I have like reiterated multiple times. I don't really know how many people the Iranians killed in Syria, but I don't think it was the majority of people killed there, but I don't have any doubt that they do. It's true. I mean, that post is true. Like, it's that's a truth nuke.
Versus what Donald Trump is indicating, that he is willing to take the side of protesters and push for regime change.
No, I don't think the status quo in any way, shape, or form was stable or sustainable. I mean, part of the reason why we have these escalating threats, which incidentally happened before the protests, Netanyahu came to Washington on December 29th and was...
But, like... I think that, as I said, like, the Marxist lecturer who I really liked, who spoke to me about, like, my kind of take of, like, meaningful change will not happen whilst America is in power. People do have the capacity to do the impossible. Like, once again, when I was talking to Loner Box about this, like, I don't think I even mentioned this. The French Revolution felt impossible. Like, the French confronted, like, a monarchical regime that had lasted for a very, very, very long time. The Arab Spring confronted dictatorial regimes that had lasted an incredibly long amount of time. The impossible can happen, but unfortunately, these revolutions did not achieve what they had hoped, and neither did the French Revolution. But I do think that there is this inherent drive in humans to eventually live under something that is better than this, because this is not sustainable. It is not a meaningful existence for millions and millions, for billions of people. Got to understand in the context of Trump making a move for global seizure. Timing is all. Thanks for the 5,500. But I mean, I don't doubt that that is the reason for a lot of the media reporting on this, for a lot of the reaction by online creeps and stuff. The reason that they're reacting in this way is because they're like starting to see the thought of like, actually Trump can do whatever it wants. It can take anything. It can like he can control the world. He can save everyone because he invaded Venezuela.
Pushing for the U.S. to join in Israel and attacking Iran. So the status quo was never going to last anyways. The question, of course, is what happens if the Trump administration takes military action? The signs and the signaling from the Iranian government here is much harsher than I think we have seen before. They've even come out and said that they might take preemptive military action if they see that the indications of an attack are significant. Everyone I've spoken to believe that there's a very high likelihood that there will be attacks on U.S. bases. In the past, we have seen that the Iranians have not done this. Instead, they have opted for very symbolic retaliation in coordination with the U.S. to make sure that the U.S. bases are emptied, etc., no casualties. But that is also a position that is highly criticized inside of the Iranian regime because it has not led to increased security for them. I mean, mindful of the fact that they're in this situation again now. So there's a likelihood that they are going to actually make true on some of their threats that they issued before, and particularly mindful of the fact that they seem to believe that they're faced with an existential situation right now and they don't have any exits. In that scenario, there's a much higher likelihood that they actually will strike. And that would be a very, very different scenario than anything we have seen so far when it comes to the U.S. Or the Trump administration using military force against Iran.
Trita, can you help me understand what actually triggered these protests this time around? They do seem to be, you said in some ways they're very similar, in some ways they're different. They do seem at least a lot bigger than what we've gotten accustomed to. What actually triggered this mass?
It led to opposite result with U.S. proxies and military regimes. Which do you mean in the context of the Arab Spring? Because unfortunately, in many countries, it did actually lead to increased repression, like more violent and dictatorial regimes. Like Egypt is very brutal under Sisi, and in Bahrain, they didn't manage to defeat the Khalifa regime, and it's only gotten more oppressive. But like also, most of these people don't give a shit about protest. Like, if they did, you know, in the context of sorry, I've totally forgotten what I was saying. I've completely lost my train of thought. My apologies.
Massive outpouring of public dissent.
It started with a collapse of the currency, partly based on some reforms that they were trying to push through, but also because of attacks against the currency. Because of U.S. financial sanctions, the Iranian government doesn't have access to a large amount of its funds that are based in foreign banks, so it actually cannot really defend the currency. And this immediately impacts, of course, traders that are, you know, deeply impacted by these rapid volatility of the currency and, of course, its collapse. So that's how it started. But very quickly, it morphed into something else, which is a sign of the tremendous anger and frustration that exists inside of society. I've frankly never seen it this angry. People have always been angry at this regime. This is not a popular regime in any way, shape, or form, but the level of anger is just completely different now than I've seen ever before.
Yeah, this is an interesting take from him. Sorry, I just wanted to pull this up. Half the people commenting on the protests in Iran haven't set foot on the soil. I lived and worked there for years as an adult. I was there as the Masha Amini protests happened. I spoke at length with people who had protested in every movement from the revolution onward. If you think there are simple predictions or easy solutions, you are wrong. Anyone who says they're going this time or the protesters are all Mossad is a propagandist or simple. Yes, I mean, as you've kind of heard from what I'm saying, that's not far off from what I'm saying. Like, I don't think one can recognize that there are certainly Israeli interests, American interests in this, that there's an interest in inflating all of this shit. But, you know, simultaneously, we cannot discount the fact that Iranians have their own opinions about stuff. Right. Sorry. Van Jones is having an amazing take. Every Arab Spring revolution were hijacked by the Gulf monarchies plus CIA because they know it will danger the regimes when people see liberation of other people. Unfortunately, this will be the same in Iran. 100%. I mean, another majorly positive thing is that if it were to happen, one would hope that, like, you know, like a kind of revolutionary moment like that would also lead to a revolutionary moment across the Middle East, where if there was actually like a meaningful revolution in Iran that led to serious change of an accountable government that was also maintaining being against Western imperialism in the region and kept the only vaguely positive thing about the Islamic Republic, you know, in terms of its actions, that would be a good thing. Unfortunately, with America in existence, America would just keep the sanctions on. Iran shir ast. How do you say lion in Farsi? Lion in Farsi. I think it's shir. It's the same word for milk, tap, value, faucet, and plug. Iran yek shir ast be in dalil azadi. I despise how I can't describe what the US wants to do in chat because YouTube is so heavily auto-modded. What do you mean the US wants to do? Israel's interest in Iran is nothing more than greed and hate. Yes, 100%. And also racism and the belief that Iranians can't do anything for themselves, that they need to be managed by foreign dictators, foreign governments who will ensure that they are, doing the right thing, that they don't dare stray from the pro-West, pro-Israel Israel line. That's kind of what these people want. They don't have the best interests of Iranians making their own choices, But like, there were pretty major protests today. In favor, as I kind of showed, so this is another perspective on it. Significant counter protests. All of the images are such low quality. This is in Tehran. There's loads of people holding up images of Khamenei. These people also exist. This isn't a video of it from the air. That looks like a pretty big protest. This will not happen. I feel like the US wants another Libya. The US always wants another Libya. The US, Israel, and all of these countries want the entire Middle East dismembered up into small ethno-states, not even because they care about ethnic minorities, but because, first of all, there's a legacy after the Second World War, and this is what people like Churchill believed, that the only way to create peace and content amongst people is basically just through, having them all in separate ethnic nations. But the other reason that they actually want them to do this is because they just want to ensure that none of these regimes or governments or anything that arises will ever, ever, ever be able to challenge Israel and Western imperialism in the region. Also, politics would have loved that one. Iran, they better run fast. Did Ethan put... Oh my god, I'm going to show you some Ethan protests. No, these are the pro-government protests, and they are very big. But also, remember, Iran is just like a humongous country. Like, that's just what Iran is. But like, we can't define what's going to happen in we can't define what's going to happen in other countries. I don't think we can. But these are sizable protests. Like, we as individuals, can't define what's going to happen in other countries. Of course, our governments can. Those do look like huge protests. But obviously we're never going to get a helicopter video showing us the scale of opposition protests. But yeah, Kurds are, as Cindy the Skull said, Kurds are obviously going to be very active in this. Kurds have a lot of discontent, and Kurds are also going to be people who are, Kurds are always going to be, Kurds are always going to be someone who's going to be difficult for anything that comes next in Iran to kind of trust. Because Kurds were oppressed under the Shah, Kurds were oppressed under the Islamic Republic, Kurds were oppressed under basically everyone. So Kurds are not going to trust basically, anyone that comes to power, and it remains to be seen who will be next if the Iranian government is to fall. But I think that we're actually like a ways away from that. But people also just want to make it out as if, oh, no, it's always going to fall apart instantaneously. But yeah, also Seamus Malek Afzali has some good takes on this. Parliamentary Speaker Mohammed Bakr Ghalibaf is speaking at this counter-protest in Tehran. Abbas Araghchi, President Masoud Pezeshkian and VP Mohammad Reza Aref, who was a significant supporter of the Green Movement, are all in attendance. So there's quite a significant amount of like government figures who are at these protests in Tehran. But yeah, the uncivilized Western masses beg for democracy. Tiny Man Square was one such instance. Zohran and AOC should show these people how to protest with grace and decorum. The protests are so huge and the discontent is real. I cannot believe people want to spin this as a CIA operation. It's so disrespectful to Iranians who have been suffering. Yeah, of course it's disrespectful to Iranians who are suffering. It's just unfortunate that there's like undeniably, and this is not to dismiss what you are saying at all. It is unfortunate that, first of all, there are loads of people influencing in favor of this online, like loads of pro-Israel influencers, and there are also loads of people who are from the Israeli government, from the American government, who are like, Trump's going to bomb you, Trump's going to make everything fine, Trump wants freedom in your country, when anyone with half a brain will say, this is just objectively untrue. We all know what... what we all know that none of this is happening. And against pollution, I don't think that that's what Hayahi is saying. I think it's that you should not actually just sit here and dismiss the fact that there are like people who really do have discontent, who lead lives that, you know, all of us would protest about if we didn't have access to water, if we didn't have access to like food, if our currency was basically worthless, it would lead to discontent. And in many contexts historically, that has led to people pushing in favor of like really, really dictatorial and brutal ideologies and regimes, you know, like in the context of the Nazis. Like, where did you think in part those came from? They tapped into anti-Semitic sentiments, but also they tapped into major discontent over things, you know? And so people are also not people are multifaceted and complex, and they won't just end up choosing like a very sure thing. Either way, let's have a look at what Van Jones has to tell us. Why a free Iran changes everything. Iran is not an Arab country, it's a Persian country, and tucked inside the distinction, that distinction is real hope for a true peace in the Middle East. Let me explain. Jesus Christ. Just straight away starting with this shit. Like saying, oh, because they're not Arabs, there's real hope for peace. Brilliant. We still talk about the Arab-Israeli conflict, but that phrase is outdated. No Arab state is openly, actively seeking Israel's destruction anymore. None. Sit with that. Egypt, Jordan, UAE, Bahrain, Morocco, all making peace, and more to come. UAE, Bahrain, Egypt, those are all puppet states of one of those countries, by the way. Like, what do you think Egypt is? What do you think Bahrain is? Morocco seeking peace with them. Great, because they got to colonize the Western Sahara. The Western Sahara. That's why they did it. And yeah, it's Van Jones. What do you expect? I just wanted to see how bad this take is. The last big holdout is Iran's Ayatollahs. In the fight for peace in the region, the Islamic Republic of Iran is the final boss. But here's the key. Persians and Jews have been allies for millennia. Since King Cyrus. Korush Bozorg! The current conflict is historically atypical. A free democratic Iran would almost certainly stop funding terror proxies, normalize ties with Israel, become a trade-based partner for prosperity. What happens when you free Iran and unleash 90 million Persians, one of the most creative cultures in the world history? For half a century, the people who invented algebra have had a lid on their head. We don't even know what we've been missing. If Persians and Jews return to their historic partnership, the entire region could blossom and bloom in ways we have not seen in centuries. Israel hasn't even existed for a century, Van Jones. Van Jones, Israel hasn't existed for a century. Psst, Jesus Christ. It is amazing the things that it is amazing the things that people are willing to say. It also doesn't help that this is just another commentary back to Iran. It's very interesting how bad the disinformation has become on Twitter because of the way in which Elon Musk picks a political cause and then throws his weight behind. And it's also so funny as well because a lot of people view this as like a woke liberal cause. Elon Musk was fucking tweeting about how high civilization existed for a brief flicker of a moment in Rhodesia, a few decades where the primordial darkness of the Stone Age was vanquished, but then it returned in the name of equality, and Zimbabwe is once again a ruin. The same happened in South Africa over a somewhat... Elon Musk is talking about... Unfortunately, this is where America is headed. This is the guy who's like aiding and abetting the protesters in Iran. Just like the fact that this kind of disinformation is just like pushed out and spewed so simply, so easily is insane. But yeah, finally, right, for the rest of the stream, I've not even felt well today, so sorry if I've been a bit... finally been like a bit out of it. We're gonna talk now about everyone's favorite. So Ethan Klein, like J.K. Rowling, has been absolutely salivating over the protests going on in Iran. So we'll just go through his stories. So he loves this because, in case you didn't know, Ethan thinks that Iran is the biggest and best threat in the Middle East. That they are responsible for all of the problems going on in the country. Now, like all typical libs, he's been sharing absolute disinformation. Islamic Republic of Iran declares war on its own people. 5,000 dead. Look to your left. Look to your right. Who is ignoring this after being so loud? Why? Leftists aren't ignoring this. It's just, once again, these are very, very, very complex questions of things happening, you know? And I don't doubt that they are repressive, that the Iranian government does all of these bad things. But I am also simultaneously not going to sit here and believe that 5,000 people are dead because no one is claiming that. So... here he is dunking on Hassan after Hassan said, Hamas is resisting against Israel because they're anti-Semitic, is the funniest lie people tell themselves. If Israel was a Christian nation managing the apartheid and ethnic cleansing, they'd still fight. You're just mad people are fighting back at all. Hassan is not skilled or knowledgeable enough to engage this conversation with honesty. He paints ridiculous straw men so his two-dimensional understanding of the world makes sense. Nobody believes Hamas is only resisting because they hate Jews. What? A considerable number of people definitely, categorically do believe this. Sorry, this isn't on the topic of Iran, but this is just such a bad take. I also hate that, like, I don't know where the level of, where the level of confidence comes from to talk like this about an issue like how Hamas is described in media, because you are a lover of the media. And yeah, once again, the only time, Ethan, you're wrong. We discussed this earlier, Tony Soprano lover. He literally fucking never posts anything like this about other civil protests around the globe. He's only doing it for Iran because it's the declared enemy of Israel. I mean, first of all, there are too many inaccuracies there. First of all, he never posts about protests inside America. Did he even bother to post about Renee Good? Maybe I just missed that. However, simultaneously, he does post about them, but only when they're things he likes. That's the only time he'll bother posting about them. He will just totally ignore what is going on in any country. And yeah, people constantly bring up the 88 Charter all of the time. They constantly bring up the notion that Hamas are evil anti-Semites whose only goal was to kill as many Jewish people as possible on October the 7th, which is categorically untrue. And if you bother to look into the logic of any of the people who like actually did the October the 7th, who talked about it, that was not their logic, just kill as many Jewish people as possible. But of course, no one gives a shit about that. And the portrayal of Hamas as anti-Semitic is literally something being done by Zoran Mamdani right now and AOC, who are like people who complained about people's chanting, "We support Hamas," which is obviously not something I'm gonna really be able to comment on because of the laws in my country. But here's AOC. Hey, so marching into a predominantly Jewish neighborhood and leading with a chant of "We support Hamas" is disgusting and an anti-Semitic thing to do. Pretty basic. They are literally talking to they are literally talking and they are protesting against people who are in support of land sales. That is their First Amendment right to say and do those things if they want to. It's not a right that they have that we have in the United Kingdom, but it's their First Amendment right to say and do those things. How is it like anti-Semitic? How is that like anti-Semitic, unless you believe that Hamas are just an entirely anti-Semitic thing. And then he's posting the same memes that Asmongold does of drawing a crocodile. Frogan, leftists preach and foam at the mouth at the thought of revolution happening in America, but as soon as it happens in the Middle East, what they're doing is wrong. Based, just to be clear, she said this about Hamas on October the 7th. She hasn't said shit shout Iran. About Iran, I assume. We love a principled queen. October the 7th, in the context of what was happening, by the way, is a far more, revolutionary act, in terms of the context of the last few years of the last few decades, actually, of what's been happening between Palestinians and Israelis than this is. And not to say that, these, people aren't baying for a revolution or, some kind of major change or reform in the context of Iran, but rather that these protests, historically, we've had major protest movements. Nothing like October the 7th has ever happened. So very, very different, very, very different topic.
It's fucking insane. One must ask the question why, even in a country that is as Islamophobic as America, or even in countries in the Western world who are unimaginably Islamophobic, even in a region that is anti-Shia, like the Middle East, why is the Iranian stocks rising up? Why is the Ayatollah stocks rising up? It's because they're fighting a far greater villain.
Yeah, I mean, Ethan's just upset because he reckoned with this. As bad as the Islamic Republic are, and as bad as, as repressive as these groups are, all of them pale in comparison to Israel. All of them pale in comparison to the American empire especially. For all of the things Iran has done, Iran hasn't genocided and isn't currently in the process of trying to expel 2 million Palestinians that you have defended, and objectively saying that, I love this thing of terrorists who slaughter their own people. How many Palestinians are subjected to apartheid? How many Palestinians are slaughtered by Israel?
It's fucking insane.
He's just posting the same thing. Iranian student protester shot in the back of the head and buried by roadside. Yes, Israel has done that to tens of thousands of Palestinians, and you have brought on people who literally work with the American government to allow that to happen.
One must ask the question why.
He's just posting the same video.
Even in a country that is as Islamophobic as America, or even in countries in the Western world who are unimaginably Islamophobic, even in a region that is anti-Shia, like the Middle East, why is the Iranian stocks rising up? Why is the Ayatollah stocks rising up? It's because they're fighting a far greater villain, Israel. That's it.
Wow. Hila Klein praying for the people of Iran. Wow. So yeah, Ethan has been on a real spree with this stuff. So he posted this, which is like a protest in Berlin, Germany, which is not, obviously that's not Iran. I mean, you probably could have worked that out maybe by the trees. I don't know. In Tiergarten. Animal garden? Is that what Tier means? I've forgotten. But yeah. This guy's like rampage is just insinuating that, like, I don't get this. I don't get this. I don't get this. Like, the dedication of your life. And by the way, the person who just said, oh, using H3 in your title, what do you think this is? Your favorite hero who has, you know, an entire team working for him, who do all of the research for his stream, who doesn't bother reading or learning about any of the topics he talks about, who just consults with ChatGPT so he can do it quicker rather than developing his own thoughts. Why do you think he constantly posts stories about Hassan? Why do you think he talks about James Charles or Trisha Paytas or anyone? Why do you think he does that? You guys just want it to be other people doing this bad stuff on the internet because it makes you feel better. And by the way, if I'd wanted to bolster my views, I would have just talked about it first. And I would make every stream about this. I would turn myself into a Hassan waiting room. That's not what I am. But yeah, I've spent the last decade talking about the separation of Zionism and Judaism, and while conceptually it is true, these sort of images make a much stronger argument against said separation. Then people wonder why anti-Semitism grows. And then Ethan has insinuated that Hassan is responsible for the burning down of a mosque. Brilliant. Brilliant. I love this guy. I really, 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 really love this guy. I love that he just thinks that he has the audacity to... that he has the ability, that he has the audacity or the skill to... that he has the skill to deal with any of these topics. Sorry, I'm just going to move myself to the center because this image has blood on it.
It is utterly ridiculous.
So he's posted an image of a lady who has been wounded, who's protesting, saying, look at this Ameribu, iDubbbz and Anissa. I also just love that, like, apparently you have this deep regard for Iran and stuff, but the only engagement you have is just posting a protest and saying, like, look at this epic protest against thing I don't like, and people I don't like are not the same as me on this. Amazing. Silence Eye, thank you for the $10. Is Hila asking for prayers for the same Iran she cheered the bombing of? The one where female fighter pilots were her feminist heroes? Yes. The Israeli flag is also being raised in Tehran. She's reposting Yasha Ali saying, by the way, thank you so much for your incredibly kind donation and great to see you as always, Silent Scythe. And by the way, the people love the bloody edits. This is in Canada. Stop posting this as being in Iran, for God's sake, and ask yourself if this is the best thing for Iranians right now, to have this weaponized by bad actors. Jesus. Please be careful where you / who you're getting your information from on what's happening around the world. The US and Israel would love nothing more than an excuse to cause harm and confusion. A lot of the time, it is not an unconditional advocacy. These are fine posts. These are absolutely fine posts. We've seen that. We've seen the analysis of Hamas. Oh, wait.
So many hostages to the bed.
Someone said scorched earth, which is also...
Wait. Here's Ethan Klein's very meaningful and beautiful analysis on Hamas.
Why wouldn't they just simply keep them alive as they did? So many hostages to the bed.
Someone said scorched earth, which is also true. I mean, they're terrorists.
Yeah.
It's like Hamas is like a terrorist death cult. Like, they don't need a reason to...
Like, yeah. Once again, not all of these Iranian protesters are peaceful. They are objectively not. You only care about someone who imposes Western imperialism. You don't care how that revolution looks like in a country that you want to see change in, that you think it will just be magically good if the West and Israel bomb it, because your wife objectively supports that. You think Iran is the big evil.
People.
You don't just kill hostages for fun when you take hostages.
Well,
There's a lot of dead hostages.
I mean, it is a psychotic terrorist death cult, so would some people in Hamas kill for fun? Probably.
Iranian protesters are a psychotic, psychotic activists who get paid for by the Israeli government and the CIA exclusively. Once again, the irony of this kind of stuff, where Hassan does actually have his own thoughts, where he does actually have meaningful analysis on stuff.
In fact, I don't even need to guess.
I
Go
mean,
to
October
October
7th.
7th. They have phone calls of people calling their parents in ecstasy, talking about how they murdered, 10 people with their bare hands.
And once again, Ethan would never, ever talk about the Israeli Air Force. In fact, his wife worships the Israeli Air Force, who are celebrated in Israeli society by his own wife, who are far grander mass murderers than Hassan, who are objectively, than Hassan. Of course, they're far greater murderers, who are far greater mass murderers than Hamas. Tea time. Get the ginger tea with honey and lemon. Maybe. I mean, I do need something. Also, probably don't just accuse Ethan of being a nonce. I just deleted that. I don't know whether I should just let that run. I don't care, but...
I just killed 10 Jews, Mom and Dad. Hassan says that...
Israeli society celebrates men who have killed tens of thousands of Palestinians. But of course, it's so funny. The only thing he cares about are things that are good for Israel. Anything that is in any way bad for Israel, he doesn't want to happen.
Nobody would do that. Well, there's a call of someone calling their parents in ecstasy about how he just killed 10 Jews with his own hands. And his parents are stoked for him, too.
Wow. What is this?
And it's easy for people to buy because there are so few Jews in the world, just a couple million, that so many people have never even fucking met one. And so it's easy to just be like, that's what all Jews are like. And the article makes sure to say that even in Israel, people living in Israel fucking hate Netanyahu. He has a 53% disapproval rating back home.
It's also really funny when anyone brings this up because, this egg lady does not have even the most basic level of knowledge about what's going on in the Middle East. Just to note something here, the reason Netanyahu has a disapproval rating that is that low isn't actually because of the mass murder. It's because of mishandling of, in their opinion, of the hostages, because of the fraud and corruption, and that he might turn Israel into a halachic state. That's it. What?
So for him even to say that Zionism supports what's happening in Palestine is fucking bullshit.
Zionism supports what is happening in Palestine is bullshit.
Yeah, God forbid he actually have some nuance here. And maybe he talked about the difference between Zionism and Judaism before October 7th, but he fucking...
She's so funny. She's so funny because she's so confident and thinks anything she does, that she shows any interest. This is just trying to win debates on the internet and getting gotchas for a community of people who want to do no engagement with anything meaningful. They literally just want to feel good about dunking on Hassan. That is literally it. They don't bother to read. They don't know anything about Israel. They don't know anything about Palestine. What even is that, what she's looking at? An imager thread of people's opinions of disapprovals on what's it called? And just God, she is literally, you know as well, people are it's funny because H3's community will be like, you talk about H3 too much. She calls herself an H3 after party. That's what her YouTube channel is. H3 After Party, Mondays and Fridays. It's after all of the weirdos who watch H3 have nothing else to do and just go and watch this for this biting political analysis. This is just the world in which they live. Sycophants with no actual nuance, no actual understanding of what's going on in Palestine or Iran, who've never picked up a book about Palestine or Iran, who've never really spoken to an Iranian, apart from maybe someone who just tells them over and over again, we want the Shah. Iran. We need Shah in Iran. Everyone in Iran is loving the Shah of Iran. I'm from Iran. But yeah, someone juxtaposed the two healer posts against one another. This one, the praying for people of Iran, and female pilot who participated in the attack on Iran. Israeli women are heroes. Israel killed 1,000 people in Iran. They killed 1,000 people in Iran, okay? During the 12-day war, as they like to call it. During the 12-day war, they killed 1,000 people, predominantly civilians. They caused untold damage and inflicted fear on huge amounts of civilians. Your wife liked it then. You do not care about anything. The entire world for you revolves around the benefit of Israelis. That's who you care about. Anything that is done for the benefit of Israelis is good to you.
About Israel, Iran is bad as well.
Right, because he was standing next to a general. Israel.
Sorry, I can't find this clip otherwise.
Bomb kind of this to me.
Hold on. Ethan Klein. Oh, fuck's sake. Klein comes out.
Boom! Hello. Oh, yeah, maybe the boom was... Boom! Hello. Oh, yeah, maybe the boom was... Because of the title. I didn't mean it like that.
Oh. The Chris Kunzler after party is just in a book, but listen to this. He's just like makes a joke about people getting bombed in Iran, just like smiling and that's not a concern about what's actually happened.
I did not.
And Hila laughs because she likes it. I think she posts shit like that because she genuinely sees herself as a hero, as well as her stint in the IDF is something she's deeply proud of. Yeah, of course she's deeply proud of being in the IOF. Of course she's deeply proud of it. This is just pathetic. And all of these people who cannot actually offer any support to any other revolutionary cause and just want to see the continuation of Western imperialism feel great about attaching themselves to Iran and thinking that once Ayatollah go, magical, wonderful future. Wow. In Syria, there was huge destabilization after that. However, right now, there is a guy in power who has people who surround him who are involved in huge massacres that were perpetrated along on the basis of ethnicity. These are people in very, 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 very close proximity to Ahmed al-Shara or Jolani in Syria. Like, for these people, they attach themselves to this liberal cause because they live in a binary world of good, bad. They see Israel and the West as good and bad. They see Islam, it is an Islamophobic thing generally, manifest in the figure of Ayatollah Khamenei and the wider thing of the Islamic Republic as the most evil out of all of those Islamists who are currently ruining the Middle East because they would never confront that there are far more complexities and that the Islamic Republic did not emerge out of nowhere. The Islamic Republic, and the reason for its, anti-Western tones, in part comes from the Shah and how, pro-forcefully Western he was, and the pathetic relations that he had with the West, whilst also simultaneously massively oppressing his own people. But these people just feel good about attaching themselves to a cause, one that is safe, one that is sanitized, one that does not ask complex questions about the lives that you lead and the Western imperialism under which you live. And that's not to diminish anything about and that is just not to diminish anything about, about what's going on in Iran and people wanting change there once again. But, simultaneously, for a lot of people, it's just a simple cause to glob themselves onto. And it makes them feel good because big Islamic baddies getting beaten back by protesters who love democracy and freedom. And it's like, even then, that is not as simple as like what it actually is and like the feelings of people inside Iran. And they want to feel good about an epic revolution coming that makes them actually feel like the good and moral leftists who are better than others. Everyone wants to feel that way. And these people get it on a topic like Iran. That's how Ethan Klein gets his kicks.
Like a war thing, but there is a war happening. Yeah, I know. I don't know where that came from.
Oh my God.
I've never started a...
Just button it already.
Hey, boom, guys, not today. No, see, it's not just me.
These are his other posts. It's like a dream. This is Tehran. Ian and Anissa, thoughts? They say she can go to prison for this, but you said that's American propaganda. Tell me what to think. Did he get this fact-checked by Ian and Anissa before posting this? Seriously though, free Iran. The Persian people are wonderful and deserve better. My lord, my word. I really want to find it, and it's probably plausible to find. His best ever post is, I standing with great people of Persia. That was an amazing post, put frankly.
Whatever you think about Israel, Iran is bad or worse. They are the fucking evil. They are the evil fucking. They are the reason for all this bullshit.
Like, genuinely, he believes this. This is such a Western-minded thing that is perpetuated by like Orientalist Islamophobia that inflates Iran to the greatest menace in the world. And by the way, it also shows the entire lack of regard for everything else going on in the Middle East. None of these people care at all about like oppression anywhere. Like, they don't give a shit that Saudi Arabia does it, you know? They may go, oh no, Saudi Arabia bad to women and such, and that's not good. But they're never actually going to engage with, hey, why the hell is the West still backing this kind of stuff? But no, once Iran's gone, everything fine. It's just a pathetic fantasy. It's a pathetic fantasy that doesn't bother to engage with anything actually going on in the Middle East.
Like Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis, they're all attacking under the direction of Iran.
By the way, once again, this is not true. Hamas do not attack entirely at the behest of Iran. And Yemeni people, of course they don't. Hamas are a group that are rooted in opposition to the state of Israel on the basis of Israel being a genocidal settler colony. Also, once again, the same people who support this, and I'm not saying that this isn't a reason to not support it. So this is from the Institute of the Study of War, which is probably not a good source. But just read this. More Iranian security officers have died during the current protests than in any other protest wave in Iran. IRGC-affiliated media reported on January 11th that at least 114 regime security personnel from the law enforcement company Basij and IRGC have been killed since the start of the protests. In the context of Palestine, you guys view the Intifada as the most brutally violent thing in the entire world because of the attacks inside Israel. But if you look at the Second Intifada, that is a similar ratio of Israelis being killed by Palestinians to Palestinians being killed by Israelis. Like, okay. So 600 Israeli civilians, Jesus Christ, I didn't even realize. So 600 Israeli civilians were killed by Palestinians, and 215 to 301 Israeli troops were killed by them. But like, whenever someone uses militancy against Israel, it's no, don't do that. Do peaceful protest. And then you bring on the people who litigate the Great March of Return. Like, the Great March of Return didn't kill hundreds of Israeli Israeli soldiers, it killed and wounded hundreds of innocent Palestinians were wounded, and thousands upon thousands of Palestinians were killed in that context. Yet you have people on who speak out against that. You don't actually bother offering that in the context of October the 7th and saying, hey, October the 7th isn't that much of like a major surprise in the context of Israel rejecting and treating peaceful protest with extreme violence and extreme brutality to crack down on it. And also in the context of, like Hamas's militancy being incredibly popular amongst Palestinians, and also like people all over the world who show solidarity and see like militant resistance as the only means to challenge. And like even in the context of Iran, why do you think so many Western leftists like think that Iran bombing Israel is a good thing? Because Israel has shown that peaceful protest is not something that it understands. It has shown that peaceful protest is going to be met with extreme brutality, with mass killings, but you only care when that's done to Iranians because it fits within your pathetic worldview. You know, you maybe pay a platitude to Palestinians, but you never confront anything about that, you know?
They are all being these
Funded by
jihadists,
them.
fucking Islamists, like mega, like, these ultra, you know, I don't even know how to say it, militant, super religious zealots, right? This is.
By the way, the Houthis were not created by Iran. The Houthis, even the STC in Yemen, I got this a little bit wrong, I will say. The STC in Yemen it's in part to do with like the historical and political situation in Yemen. Like it is categorically. The UAE has just globbed onto it as like a proxy to use to basically trying to get to secede from Yemen, because the South is not very united on like what like a seceded country should be, and there's a lot of divisions even in southern Yemen. But like the Houthis are not some like magical group that Iran just pays to do things. They reflect long-standing Yemeni solidarity with the Palestinian cause, and also a rejection of Western imperialism. Did you know that Yemenis used to walk into gunfire they used to just walk into machine guns because of how repressive the Saleh regime had become? They used to walk into it and get themselves mowed down intentionally, but to show how peaceful they were in comparison to the security forces in Yemen who oppressed them. And then Saudi Arabia, in order to stop the counter-revolution there, slaughtered tens of thousands of Yemeni people. But don't worry, Ethan will tell us actually that the real evil in the Middle East is just Iran,
ridiculous.
who funds all of these things, you know? That's what's bad in the Middle East. I condemn Coachella outside of Auschwitz. Yeah, don't we all? Don't we all? Unfortunately, not everyone does. Cheers for the €2, Marcus. Yeah, we should all encourage Ethan to go to Israel and show us the diversity. Yeah, 100%. And yeah, actually,
It is utterly ridiculous.
Trevor. We also have to, like, in the context of Palestine, according to this guy, consider the meaning of from the river to the sea, but instantaneously wipe away any militancy. And by the way, I am not bringing this up to say that protesters in Iran are doing bad things, that they are deserving of death. What I am saying, however, is that, like, in any other context, you factor this in because it is against people that you do not like. Israel attacked Lebanon yesterday, close to my family in Sidon. My brother-in-law's family were very afraid, so Ethan can shut up. Oh, sorry, Lemon Mint Cat. I'm sorry to hear that. That's awful. I mean, I really want to visit Yemen, but the situation is terrifying. And the fact that Israel can just get away with that, the fact that that is just viewed as a normal status quo, that Israel bombing Lebanon because of these tropes about, like, repeating these tropes is so fucking dangerous as well. Tens of thousands of people in the Middle East are being killed and have been killed over the last, millions since, like, in the last 20, 30 years. Millions of Middle Easterners have been killed. Tens of millions, if not hundreds of, no, in excess of hundreds of millions of people have had their lives torn apart on the basis of this notion that Middle Easterners are backward savages, that countries like Iran are going to interfere everywhere, destabilize anything. By the way, this guy just sounds like an Emirati official. He sounds like someone, because this is what they do. Whenever there's a major protest in Bahrain, in all of these places, whenever there's a protest in all of these places, Whenever there's a protest in all of these places, all of these governments say, it's Iran, Iran are destabilizing our country, parroting this rhetoric and acting as if that is the problem in the Middle East rather than Western imperialism is leading to the death and destruction, the continued bombardment of Lebanon just being acceptable because Israel is the moral force for good against the evil bad in the world. And I know, by the way, Trevor Tales, that you were being sarcastic. It's just like, it makes me quite animated because simultaneously the same people who chant and complain about Intifada are like, oh, here's people chanting death to Khamenei. Have they never considered that might be Islamophobic? That might be threatening to Khamenei? I think we need to have a big sit down and have a chat about that.
It's all coming from Iran under their direction, you know? So, you know, and what's interesting is that even you know who hates the Iranian government the most? Iranians.
The people.
Every fucking.
I met this Iranian guy in LA, and he like really hated the Iranian government. He like really hated the Iranian government. I don't know, man. Iranians, they be hating their government.
Iranian, you ask, is like, fuck them. I can't wait for them to be gone.
Because I think the reason I'm feeling quite passionate about this is because, first of all, obviously, I really disdain Ethan Klein. But second of all, it's a really, for me, it's like a really major thing in just the sense of this stands for something so much bigger. It stands for so much of like this crap of like Elika Labon and all of these people who portray Israel as glorious, who act as if Israel is, that Israel is doing this kind of, that Israel is doing like amazing stuff. Meaning sarcasm, helpful to know them semi-frequently since they help fellow... sorry, I didn't think... wait, I'm just saying, like, I didn't think Trevor Tales was not being sarcastic. It was just, I feel animated about this crap about having to consider every single time, and I knew he was bringing it up as a joke, but these people who continually say, like, oh no, you have to think about this kind of... you have to think about the feelings of, like... of Israelis and Jewish people in Western society when you're condemning them doing a fucking genocide. All of these people in the context of Iran can somehow very quickly recognize that protesters do not possess the same capacity to be as violent as the government, but yet in the context of Palestine, they're like, no, actually Palestinians are the violent problem. By the way, if any of you wanted to read about this, I'd highly recommend it. In Pursuit of Whiteness, Why Iranian Monarchists Cheer Israel's Genocide. I don't like one of the concepts in here, dislocated nationalism. I mean, I'm sure it's interesting, but I just didn't personally find it that interesting. Not really for any specific reason, I just thought it was like another dislocative nationalism. I just didn't find it as a particularly interesting concept. But she's just talking about how Iranians think they're going to become white by worshipping, and not all Iranians, but certain ones, and like by worshipping Israel and ignoring the history of Western imperialism in their own country and not trying to find solidarity with other Middle Easterners. But mark my words, these governments will turn your back on you. Like, all these people who are asylum seekers in the UK, who are backing America and Israel to intervene, you will get the same thing that one of the figures in the Milei government was doing, where they went up to a protester, like a celebration of Venezuelans, and told them, your time is up, you're going. These people advocating for an Israeli military strike, the people like Nigel Farage, I mean, Nigel Farage is literally at a protest today. Hold on. Let's see what he has to say.
Persian people, you wonderful people, you freedom fighters. This time, are we going to win? Yes, we are!
By the way, these protests are really fucking small. And they also always go on about how pro-Palestine rallies are like jobless things. In the context of this is like the middle of a Monday. What are all these people doing?
We're going to win. And it was a terrible price. A terrible price being paid by many innocent people.
Once again, just another
utterly ridiculous.
Just another UAE-backed foreign operative.
In every Iranian city right now. But you've got to believe that this is the moment.
We really appreciate you.
He's gonna deport you, bro. Like, I don't, like, I really, these right-wing Iranians, my God. I like right-wing diasporas of any diaspora are annoying. This isn't something that's unique to Iranians. They do have the uniqueness of being like this is actually later on in the day, I was wrong. They do have this uniqueness of being considered Aryans within like racial ideology of a few people. But like a lot of like Kurdish people who are asylum seekers here probably quickly realize that a lot of these reformists who are like, where's the left on this topic? Where's the left supporting Iranian protesters? Don't realize that the people showing up to these things have made this a hostile environment. They're literally, as we showed earlier, they're literally flying Israeli flags. The guy organizing it, Niak Gorbani, is... if you've ever been to a protest in London, you will literally know who he is, because he wanders around with like the Israeli flag and does this kind of stuff. Like Hamas is terrorist, the Israeli flag, he supports the Israeli military, he spends his time agitating, he's the guy organizing all these protests. There's a reason that Nigel Farage is there, because he traffics in the same conspiracies as Ethan Klein, that Iran is responsible for all evil, whilst taking money from the genociders of the Sudanese people. The only time Ethan has ever mentioned Sudan was when he was like, oh, you can see the bodies from space, because that was a popular news talking point. He'd never confront that actually that's not Iran doing that, that's actually the United Arab Emirates, an ally of the West, you know? Never would confront that. Ethan has talked to wealthy Iranians from Westwood. Exactly. Thanks for the $2, Noxolotl. But yeah, once you talk to those people, it's like one of the guys I debated on TikTok. I debated this guy on TikTok who was like, actually, all Iranians are really loving the Shah. And it's like, which Iranians? And he's like, the ones I talk to, they all love Iran and the Shah. And it's like, what? What Iranians are you talking to? Because that is not a universal thing. People have complex opinions about topics. Many of them feel negatively towards the Islamic Republic, but not just loving the Shah. It drives me crazy whenever someone talks about protesters' employment. It just seems so petty, and like mind your own business. You don't know a person's situation. Maybe they... Exactly. I mean, it's just what these people are always talking about. They're always talking about people who are like, oh, you know, they don't have jobs and they're protesting all the time. And quite often these are protests on a Saturday. The combo flags are so pathetic as well. They're like wearing the match scarves, you know, the one that's like one half Chelsea, one half Manchester United. They look lame. They look pathetic. I don't want anything to do with that. What else was I going to say? I've forgotten. We'll go back to this.
I see a lot of activists supporting Israel who are Iran, or supporting Israel in this conflict against Iran specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Not
this kind of shows you who Ethan Klein is listening to. The kind of people who are in favor of Israel. The kind of people who are in favor of Israel are not activists. They are mental.
Supporting the horrific
the
crimes.
Ayatollah.
Yeah. What? So what?
The Ayatollah.
No, the Ayatollah is evil.
Yeah.
Everybody hates the Ayatollah.
Right.
They fuck these guys. You know what I mean? Like, and so far it does seem like the strikes that Israel's done in Iran, from what I can tell, have been very targeted.
Very strategic. It seems they've been playing it for a long time.
So there's not, you know.
They just love this shit. They love Iranians being killed when it's by Israel.
There's not, as far as I've heard, any, or at least not massive civilian casualties in Iran.
I heard of civilian casualties. I mean, nothing obviously compared to Gaza,
AB, get back in your box. No talking.
but it was definitely more targeted.
Where did you hear that? Because I haven't seen that.
Okay, apparently 500 civilians were killed. 436 civilians were killed, which was per the Human Rights Activist Network in Iran. 435 military personnel and 319 unidentified.
Wall Street Journal.
And, like, by the way, Ethan and Healer expect you to have sympathy for the people who lost 32 civilians and one off-duty soldier.
Let me see. I believe it was Wall Street Journal. Let me see.
Can you pass that? Dude, fuck the Ayatollah.
They're
They're
terrible.
like the worst.
They're
They
terrible.
they are the problem with every fucking thing in that. It's funny. I feel like everyone blames a lot on Israel, and listen, Israel is a shit stir,
Mhm.
but Iran is like is this driving force behind Hamas.
It is incredible to blame Hamas. It is incredible to blame Hamas and Iran as the driving force of the illness and the malaise that is affecting the Middle East. Israel is a settler colony implanted into the Middle East by the same Western imperialists who you would probably cry about the invasion of Iraq for them doing. Like, how dare you sit there and say that? And this guy is like treated by his audience as like some decent source on this kind of stuff.
And I think the Ayatollah is evil. You know what I mean? So getting rid of them would not be a bad thing at all.
But the thing is you genuinely think that we should deliberate and cry over getting rid of Israel. The getting rid of Israel would objectively be a good thing. However, the getting rid entirely of American imperialism in the Middle East would be the perfect dream. That would be the main and most important thing. The main and most important thing. The destruction of American imperialism in the Middle East. But yeah, I mean, it's just a major problem that, like, Tommy Robinson, Mohammed F. I just want to see if I can find my... Yeah, here we go. One of my friends and the brilliant journalist, Mohammed F., was at the pro-Iran protests, and he had this little think piece to say about it. Let me just read it. I don't know if you can see it. It's here, and I'll link it in the chat. Sorry, I need to pull myself up. What does it mean to fly the Israeli flag alongside the anti-IRGC regime change flag for Iran? What does it mean to host and praise Britain's most far-right, divisive, misinformation spreading criminal figure, Tommy Robinson? That is a lot of words to describe Tommy Robinson. All accurate. You should have added fraudster though, Hamoudi, my boy. What does it mean to host ultra-Zionist figures who dehumanize Arabs and Muslims and justify their killing? Parts of this protest would have you confused if this was a pro-Israel, pro-genocide and pro-apartheid rally or a pro-regime change in Iran rally. What kinds of allies are Israel and the fascist far right? The frustration with the Islamic Republic rule is very real and understandable, but truly Iranian people deserve better than having pro-genocide figures and mantras plastered across their movement. I think that this is 100% a thing. And I'm not going to sit here and condemn Iranians. I'm not going to be like, you've got to fix this right fucking now. Iranians, especially people with family there, are going through a lot of suffering right now. However, this kind of stuff is so unappealing and repugnant. The fact that Tommy Robinson, someone who is working for mass remigration, someone who wants to work in favor of the deportation of asylum seekers from Kurdistan. Nigel Farage is constantly talking about evil Kurds running money laundering businesses and stuff. They want people expelled from this country. Many people who are asylum seekers from Iran. Iranian... Like, in the last 10 years, right, Iran is the most common, is the top country of nationality of people who come to this country who seek asylum here. These people at this protest want you deported. And this is why I think I'm so enraged by, like, a lot of this. Because I do feel like this is just the biggest disservice. Whether it's pro-Israel people who are just, like, continually like, oh, we're going to bomb Iran and bring you freedom. We need to get rid of the evil Ayatollahs and everything will be fine. Or it's these fuckers in the diaspora who are just in favor of, like, of Israel mass killing Palestinians. Like... people wandering around with the Israeli flag there. You know, it's just disgusting. This isn't welcoming. Emily Schneider, I think her name is. She's the wife of Yosef Haddad. This guy, Niak Gorbani. Trump will deport you. The flag of the Israeli military. All of this crap. It just sucks. Like, it just sucks. And I think people need to wake up and see that their solidarity lies with people who support Palestine, people who aren't fooled into this notion of pretending Iranians have no grievances, that Iranians want like a, you know, Iranians do indeed want change. But yeah. I think I'm going to end the stream here, though. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for everyone who's donating and becoming a member. You've managed to bring us up to near enough like 62 members with 30 days to go, so we should easily smash 100 members. I hope you have a lovely, lovely rest of the evening. I'll see you guys tomorrow for the stream. I really am grateful. If anyone has the ability, there's a donation link to Rania Sasor. And if you want to donate, you can. And there's also a link to the Discord if you've not joined already. Join, and it'll take you to the donation page. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all for supporting. Have a lovely rest of the evening.